At 7 o'clock on Tuesday, February 22nd, we're going to hold a public hearing to obtain the views of citizens concerning community development and housing needs as required by the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. The Village of Romeo will be receiving $2,500 in community development block grant funds for fiscal year 2022 from the Macomb Urban County Program. Federal guidelines require that maximum priority be given to activities which primarily benefit low or moderate income families or which aid in the prevention of elimination of slums or blight. A variety of projects are eligible for community funding, and these include property acquisition, code enforcement, housing rehabilitation, planning and administration, handicap barrier removal, rehab of buildings, public services, public facilities, public infrastructure, home buyer assistance. Citizens residing in blighting areas or lower income persons are encouraged to participate. Is there anybody who wanted to make a comment for this public hearing on the CDBG grant funds? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Conti, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator at Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers. With the number of older adults in Macomb County rapidly increasing, the need for support services due to frailties of age, chronic health conditions, or disabilities is growing dramatically and will continue to do so well into the future. For 29 years, our organization has been providing free basic assistance to hundreds of frail, older, and physically challenged low-income to moderate-income adults, helping them remain safely in their homes with the help of over 200 volunteers. Such assistance has been helping older and disabled adults with transportation, chores, respite breaks, errands, and loneliness. These opportunities provide fulfilling experiences for those who wish to volunteer, as well as support for those in need. The CDBG Safe at Home project of IVC is part of our larger chore and repair program for older and disabled adults. The project was developed to provide additional chore and repair services in communities that allocate funding for this purpose. The project allows us to assist low to moderate income seniors and physically challenged adults with indoor and outdoor chores, minor home repairs, and routine housekeeping. We identify individuals who cannot do these tasks on their own and with limited resources and prioritize those with the greatest need. We are requesting the CDBG funds to increase the number of low-income citizens we can reach to grow our program, as well as coordinate the volunteers who do these services. In 2021, even during the pandemic, we were able to serve almost 450 clients, with almost 150 being served through the Safe at Home program. While we have been able to support a few residents of Romeo over the years, we would love to expand our support, including the Safe at Home project, further into the community. With funding received from Romeo for this current program year, we are working to offer this important service to Romeo residents. We hope for continued funding for the 2022-2023 program year so that we can continue to build momentum and offer this service to more of those in need into the future. The appreciation for the assistance is heartwarming, from seniors such as a woman who we helped install a new toilet when she didn't have any that functioned, and another senior who we helped declutter her home and took donations to the Salvation Army and St. Vincent de Paul. Other examples of help through this project may be replacing locks, washing windows, and installing smoke alarms. With the CDBG funding, this project can grow and assistance can be granted to a variety of lower income Romeo senior citizens and disabled adults. Thank you for everyone here tonight for your consideration and for the funds granted in past program years. Any dollar amount is greatly appreciated in our program, and we hope to continue partner with you going forward. If you know of any seniors who might utilize our services and could use our assistance, please feel free to call our office or visit ivcinfo.org, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
You guys said you,
Yeah.
You replaced a water closet, a toilet in the senior's home?
Yeah,
Did you
correct.
have to snake out the drain also?
That I'm not sure. Yeah, I just know she didn't have a functioning one, so we just installed a completely new one for her.
That was in the village, or?
It wasn't in Romeo, that was in Shelby Township, but just an example of things we can do through our project.
You do handicap rails also and ramps, or?
We don't normally do those types of projects. It depends on the skill set of our volunteers. I think we've done them like in the way past, but we haven't done them as of recent. But I know like Macomb Community Action does programs like that specifically for handrails.
And if they contact you, you can always direct them to the next
Yep,
person.
we have a database of resources that, you know, if we can't service them, we'll guide them to the right direction.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Justin's truck interior light is on in the parking lot.
Oh, it'll shut off. Thank you.
Okay.
It stays on for like 10 minutes. Appreciate it.
Anybody else here for the CDBG funds public hearing? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I'm going to close that portion of the public hearing. We have a second public hearing on our agenda tonight. The Village of Romeo Board of Trustees will hold a public hearing. The purpose is to hear comments from the public, written or oral, regarding proposed ordinance as drafted by legal counsel. If adopted, the elected offices of village clerk and village treasurer would become appointed positions. Sorry, were you here for the CDBG?
I am.
Okay, we just closed it, but I'm gonna let you. Yeah, it's okay. Let me just finish reading this, and then we'll. Is it okay if I go back into that?
Yes.
To hear
Yes.
her? Yes, okay. Under general village law for the state of Michigan, section 62.1, the village has the ability to create an ordinance if adopted by 2/3 majority vote of its voting members. So we have this public hearing open. Now, I'm going to allow this lovely young lady to comment on the last public hearing. Oh, and I see Mr. Rosenberg just walked in too from Samaritan House, so you're not alone. Okay.
I kept going to the wrong building.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, we moved meeting rooms, so I'm glad you found us.
Can I share some information?
Absolutely.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dory Vasquez Nolan. I'm the Executive Director of Care House, the Macomb County Child Advocacy Center. Our main office is located in the city of Mount Clemens, and we also now have a satellite office located in the city of Warren. Care House is the only agency in Macomb County offering a comprehensive response for child victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and for children that may have been a witness to a violent act, as well as their non-offending family members. I'm sorry, I'm so out of breath.
It's okay.
Our goals are to minimize the trauma for the child victims of abuse and to support that child and family through the investigative and prosecution phases, and to provide that support to help them heal. Care House is an accredited member of the National Children's Alliance and one of over 900 accredited children's advocacy centers in the United States. We collaborate with all law enforcement jurisdictions in Macomb County, as well as the FBI, Homeland Security, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Those federal agencies are usually involved with us in investigations of child pornography or human trafficking. We also work with Children's Protective Services, Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, and medical and mental health professionals. Almost 3 children in every Michigan classroom, and over 20,000 of all the children here in Macomb County today are living with the trauma of sexual abuse. These numbers are most likely much higher than our best estimates because most children never tell. And living with sexual abuse is a reality for children of every race, gender, and economic status. Over 800 children, suspected child victims of sexual and physical abuse, come from every community in Macomb County and start their journey at Care House every year. By coordinating a single forensic interview, child victims are no longer forced to tell their story to many people at many different locations, reliving the details of their abuse over and over. After a forensic interview, Care House also offers support services including crisis counseling, child safety assessments, trauma-focused therapy sessions, parent and child support groups, family advocacy, access to forensic medical examinations and referrals to other needed community services. And as a designated counsel in Macomb County for the Michigan Children's Trust Fund, Care House offers child abuse prevention, education, and training to professionals in our community as well as the community at large. Families are never charged for any of the services that they receive at Care House, And according to our most recent financial audit, for the 2021 fiscal year, 91 cents of every dollar that came to Care House was specifically devoted to serving children and families in our community. Since we opened in 1996, we've conducted over 9,400 forensic interviews, and 196 of those, I'm sorry, you know what? That is not correct. I don't have the total number of children residing in the village of Romeo, but it is on the last page of your report. When this was updated, that report was, how much?
4.
Okay. For the total, if you go all the way over to the end,
91.
okay, sorry about that.
Last page.
Yes.
Very
In,
last.
in 2019, we conducted 757 forensic interviews serving 8 Romeo children. And in 2020, with COVID, our numbers are down a little bit. We conducted 664 interviews, but we still served 7 children from Romeo. And in 2021, we conducted 727 forensic interviews with 4 Romeo children. Additionally, we do provide ongoing therapy and advocacy services for several Romeo children and families. We do depend on support from the community to provide a voice for child victims and a safe place for them to be heard. This year, we respectfully request consideration for funding in the amount of $1,800 to support services for 3 qualifying child victims and their families who lived in the village of Romeo. I know, though, that resources are limited, and we'd appreciate any amount that you'd be able to send our way. We have a Facebook page we invite people to follow. Our website, www.mccarehouse.org. And I thank you again for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Dory.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Rosenberg, we closed the public hearing, but but please come on up.
Thank you, Madam President. My name is Dick Rosenberg. I'm here tonight representing Samaritan House and our request for $1,000 of the block grant funds. I currently serve as the chairman of the board of Samaritan House. Proud to do that, and think we've got a really good program. I think most of you are familiar with at least some aspects of it. Last year, we provided assistance for some 55 families here in the village, and something like just over 750 people were involved. Samaritan House has been evolving over the years. We've got a fairly broad mission. It's not just food service. We're a food choice, I guess I'd call it, in that we don't just pass out food that's available. People basically are able to order what they want for their pantry. So we're a little different in that regard, so we can help provide a balanced set of nutritional products for them. But we also provide personal products and things like that, and as well as cleaning supplies and those kinds of things. So we got a pretty broad program in that regard. I think we're well regarded in the community. We've received tremendous support over the last couple of years with the COVID situation. Just an outpouring of both food and financial donations. So that's been very gratifying. It's a fun group to work with, to tell you the truth, because there's great joy in giving as well as receiving. And so we involve almost 1,000 people in the neighborhood by the time we get done with the year. We've done some things administratively lately to try to improve things. Everything has gone to electronics, so we're trying to get out of the paper business, but we've really reorganized our pantry so that it's much more efficient. And that has allowed us to potentially serve more people. And so just this last year, we were able to expand our coverage area south into Macomb County. So we now serve down to the Hall Road. So we've now included the lower portion of Shelby Township. We used to stop at 23 Mile Road. Now we go down to the Hall Road, including the village or the city of Utica. So that's an operation we're feeling our way as we go, but we'll grow organically because it's a large population area to take over. So I think things are going well. Certainly appreciate all the help you folks have given over the years. great supporters. And are there any questions I can answer for the board this evening?
How far north do you go?
I'm sorry, sir?
How far north do you go?
Go up to the county line. We basically service northwestern Macomb County. That's our service area. Yes, sir. So,
Right.
exciting to be part of the organization, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
On our agenda, at item 10A is the actual agenda item to vote on the disbursement of funds, just in case you were curious. So we'll get to that. So now let's go back to the second public hearing, and thank you for allowing those two to speak regarding the first public hearing. So we'll open the public hearing for the proposed ordinance changing our elected officials for the office of clerk and treasurer. Is there anybody from the public that wanted to make a comment?
My name is Debbie Obrecht. I reside at 444 Morton Street, and I had the honor of serving as 8 consecutive terms as the Bruce Township Treasurer. And during my public service, my loyalty was to our residents, and I think that's very important as an elected official. And it is my opinion that it's imperative that the clerk and the treasurer positions remain as elected positions. It maintains the balance of self-check scales. An individual appointed would be compelled to be loyal to the person that appointed them, not to the general population. It's important to remember at a few council meetings, a current treasurer spoke out on matters that were concerned to her internally. Would this person appointed feel compelled to speak out? I seriously doubt that. They would feel they shouldn't, since they also can be unappointed. Therefore, this change of making the clerk and treasurer appointed versus elected would diminish the voice of our community residents. And I strongly urge the council to not amend the election process. And you must remember that the clerk creates the voucher to the expenditure, and the treasurer signs that check. And that's an important check and balance on every dollar that is spent in our community. So I think there was a very long standing on how that check and balance work. And one other comment I would like to state is the excessive wage increases recently adopted for the village president. The wage increase was justified based on the wages this person supervises. But the question really becomes, can that individual truly perform these functions? As an elected official myself, there are many individuals that made more money than us, not internally in the office. But in your case, it's like the village department head that runs the Department of Public Works, or even your police force. Many of the firefighters and paramedics, obviously their skill level and their training requires that their positions be paid on a different scale. And an elected position has 3 requirements. You're a U.S. citizen, no felony, and you are 18 years old. Now, many of us in our positions, such as myself, had many certifications, degrees, and that type of thing. But that didn't impact what we made. We were paid in accordance with what was conservative and what would best fit into a budget. And I strongly suggest these recent wage increases be reviewed and decreased to better spend our tax dollars to work for our residents, not lining the pockets of elected officials. Thank you.
Anybody else for the public hearing?
Thank you. My name is Greg Carr. I'll be brief. I know it's a long meeting with a big agenda, so thank you all for what you do. I know it's late nights. I do the same thing sort of with the DDA, and the meetings can go on a long time. But when I heard about this, it caught my attention because I have a handful of pieces of property in the village and have spent most of my life in the village of Romeo or in Washington Township. So I have a deep interest in it. I currently have real estate in the village of Romeo. I listened to one of the main concern about removing, and maybe to disagree with my friend Debbie here about checks and balances. I look at it like it's really potentially, if we can put this in place where these positions are hired, versus voted in, I believe it gives actually more power to the people because it enables them to ensure that the best person can be found out there, whoever it may be, wherever we might hire that person from. I think it's when you take away the power, when you talk about taking away the power, it's really there's a couple differences from the government law you spoke of, I think, in your last meeting, going way back 200 years or 150 years ago, whatever it is. Nowadays, things are a lot more complex. There's no doubt about it. These positions require a lot of skill for a treasurer, for all the positions for that matter. The commuting. Back in the day, it wasn't reasonable. Somebody would commute maybe an hour to go to work and maybe from 60 or 70 miles away. Now that's very possible. Plus, I spent my whole childhood in Romeo, and I believe, and maybe Bill Parker could be the one to support this or verify it, is now we have a lot more absentee building owners than we ever had before. So we have a pool of people that's dwindling to draw from for these positions. We have a lot of people, a lot less people in the village who own property who have the vested interest in what they might have had 50, 60, 70 years ago. So I think by going out there and finding the best person, that does exactly what we want to do, is give the power back to the people so that they know they're being represented by the best talent that's available. There was some points about that are very important. These positions are not policymakers. These people are doing a job that needs to be done, a very, very important job, but they're not making policy, so there's really no way to know how they're doing their job other than, and it was talked about in this meeting, potentially disparaging or letting the public know what a poor job they might be doing behind the scenes, and that's borderline dangerous, costly, nefarious. It wouldn't be a good idea to let people know that so-and-so is not doing a great job, so you may not want to vote for them again. Elected people should be making policies so we can determine how good a job is actually being done, is my observation on that. And I guess kind of the point is, when we think about, a CFO, the board of a corporation doesn't get all their employees together and say, hey, let's vote amongst us and pick a CFO. They don't do that. The board gets together and goes and finds the best talent out there to be that CFO for that corporation. And it might be within the organization. It very well could be. Football teams, they don't vote for the quarterback. They go out and recruit the best person that they can find. Superintendent, which I think we have the best one, but it was the board that hired them, that individual, and I'm glad that they did. And it wasn't the teachers getting together and voting for the best person for the superintendent. We think about our police chief and we have Tim back here, and we have the other superintendents that do these jobs, are highly skilled jobs, are hired to do that job because they know that job, and that's important. They're not making policies, but they're doing a very, very important job. So I think that needs to be considered. And I guess the real reason why I'm here is I fell victim to this a while back, and anybody can call the office there and get my phone number if they want to discuss it. But I've had issues with some real estate and various things with elected officials, and I had no recourse at all. There was nobody I could talk to about it because those people weren't hired. They were voted in, which was great. I had no vote because I don't live in the village, but I probably pay more taxes in the village than most people because of multiple pieces of property there, which I love, and I'm glad I have them. But I believe we have to have the representation, and we have to have people accountable, and they can't be held accountable by just voting, because that's a long process and it's an arduous process. And very frankly, maybe the best and most talented people would not put their name out there to run in a public election because of the cost of it, the public display of everything that goes on in elections. We're aware of that. So those are some thoughts I think the board, I would really ask you strongly consider if you wanted your bosses voted in to be your boss, or if you were cheering for a football team, that they would just kind of vote for the best person on the team to be the quarterback, or next time we need a superintendent in Romeo, that teachers all get together and kind of figure out who they'd like to be the superintendent and kind of vote from that group of people. So those are my thoughts. I'm glad to answer any questions or clarify any points, but I certainly appreciate you opening this up to have this. And I will say too, I was a little bit shocked when the public comment was sort of voted down, but there was so much comment about we've got to, have the public represented. So I'm glad I got here to make my point known. And again, I'll be glad to answer any questions or clarify any points I might have made.
Any questions for Mr. Tar?
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Zach Fowler, Village of Romeo, resident. I'm up here speaking as a resident. And as a resident, I do not want to see my vote passed on to this Board of Trustees. I'd like to evaluate the person myself, the clerk and the treasurer and the trustees, and then make a decision as a resident. Now, as a trustee, I will not take your vote away from you. So it's going to be a no automatically. That's all I got to say.
My name is Susan Parker, and I have a couple questions as well as my main reason here is I do feel that with people not being able to elect and going to an appointment, I feel like you're taking our vote away. And that's important. That is what America is based on, our free elections, and I think that's important for the village to continue this. One of the questions I have is, does this ordinance go to the voters to vote? I mean, if you...
It's one of the options. We could put together a ballot proposal and put it, and that'll be part of our discussion when we get to that agenda item. It doesn't necessarily have to. It can be made by a supermajority vote at this table, meaning it has to be at least a 5 vote in favor for it to pass. Right, but it doesn't necessarily have to go before the people to vote on, but it can.
What are the other options?
To leave it as it is, or to adopt the ordinance and then make that change. And then, if it is adopted, then a referendum of the people can be in play. You can collect signatures and ask for it to be put on the ballot, I believe. Is that correct, Mark? It goes on the ballot at that point from a referendum, yes.
There is a right of referendum. If the ordinance is adopted, the ordinance has to be published, and at the same time and in the same area of the publication, there has to be a notice stating the right of referendum. And there's a time period within which the requisite number of signatures has to be collected. It's based on, the number of signatures required is based upon a vote in the last, I believe, general election, but there is a right of referendum. So if the ordinance is adopted and the number of signatures, the requisite number of signatures are collected within the time required, it would then be voted upon by the village, those eligible to vote in the village.
But as a council, can you vote on this ordinance like tonight?
Yep.
So that's something that, and once that's voted on,
It either fails or it passes, and then if it passes and you're in opposition, you certainly have the right to do the process that Mark just explained,
You have to get a petition.
which would be a petition referendum, yes.
Okay.
So other than that, quick answer to your question is if it passes tonight, then it's in.
Okay,
And then you have legwork to do to try to
okay.
get it.
There's a very small group here tonight. I don't know how many village residents were even aware. I've talked to some people tonight and encouraged them to come, but I really do feel strongly that the people have the right to vote for village council members, for the president, for the treasurer, and for the clerk. And I thank Debbie for some of her insights, and I agree with Zach, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your comments. Who else would like to speak? Mr. Blanchard?
Good evening, Mr. Blanchard from Dickinson Street. Thank you for your time. She pretty much hit the nail on the head. We're going through this at my work. I understand it. There's a reason our predecessors have kept it this way for checks and balances. The village consultant even stated that the cost would be enormous for us to do so. So I question this. With all the unemployment, why not put out an ad to see if they want to come? Because if people don't want to put their background on a frying pan, why do we want them here running our money? You all had to put your lives, your stuff comes out about everybody when you go to get elected that you didn't want anybody to know about. Well, that's transparency between you and I and everybody else. I don't like the way my money's spent now, and I certainly wouldn't like it if we had to take on another 70 or 80,000, but hey, if we can get a better trustee or clerk that's more qualified to the needs to meet the new board, I'm all for it, but I think we still have to have our voice. So.
I'm not sure, I'm sorry, can you clarify that? Because I'm not sure exactly what you asked. Did you want us
I
to
didn't
take
ask. I was just stating.
applications for those positions on the ballot,
Yeah,
or
you can
to
put
hire
out
them?
for, you know, if you're gonna fish for a good person to take that, so why not also say, okay, put the talent pool out there, because I know there's a lot of people that are really hurting right now, and that are very overly qualified to do the job, and be like, hey, we're looking to do this, our residents don't want me to appoint somebody, so they're fighting me, so let's see what the pool has and see if they're willing to go out and get elected. I mean, because obviously they don't have to live within the village, correct?
You do have to live in the village if you're
Okay.
going to be elected here.
Okay.
So-
Well, so that's, I mean, but there's still quite a talent here,
But
I'm
if
sure.
you're hired, you don't have to live in the village.
Yeah, there's quite a talent here that could probably, you know, wouldn't mind not driving 25, 30 miles to work every day in Michigan weather. And,
Right.
oh, on a second
Come to
note,
that.
thanks DPW, you guys have been doing great, so.
All right, thanks for clarifying that.
Yes, no problem.
Anybody else wanted to speak for public comment? All right, yes, ma'am.
My name is Margaret Semenek, and I've lived in the village for 45 years. I basically agree with almost everything that Debbie said, along with Susan Parker. I feel democracy is very important, and especially what's going on now in this country. I don't want my local jurisdiction to take my vote away from me, okay? My question to you is, who chooses? Does the board choose these, or does the president choose?
It would be,
These two.
it would be a board appointment.
Okay,
Or the process can be made up however the ordinance is drafted. So if there wanted to be, you know, in the ordinance, the wording to allow for a community panel to do the hiring and interview process, that can be established. Whatever the process is of hiring can be set forth.
okay, that's another issue with me. Okay, we're small. We don't have the millions of dollars all of our other smaller communities do. That's another cost factor for our village. Okay? You're gonna put out feelers for people that want to apply for these positions. That costs money. That's not a freebie.
Well, it doesn't cost the village any to post help wanted ads with our memberships in the associations that we already have.
Well, if you
I suppose if we did run an ad in the Macomb Daily or another
if
publication
that's the
source.
route you choose, but we
Right,
don't know what
there would be.
route you're going to choose
Sure,
for that.
I understand.
Okay? Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to say one comment real quick. In all my experience, appointments, I think I was the only board member ever that voted against an appointment. Appointments are usually dead set, they're going to go, and most council members are not going to speak out against an appointment. And it is usually, in our case, the supervisor, in your case, the village president, who's going to select those candidates. And I truly believe this village has talented people to fill out an application and choose, and my experience with the treasurers I worked in the past, and even the clerks, had the knowledge and the expertise to do these jobs proficiently. And I do not think that there is a lack of people interested in voting for those people, or is there a lack of people willing to put their name on a ballot to go and be elected.
Yep, oh, sorry.
Another concern of mine is, how do we educate our voters? We don't have the Romeo Observer, we have the record, but that's a limited number. I talked to a lot of people today, they had no idea, that this was going to be coming. And that concerns me.
It concerns me as well, so if you have a solution, I would love to hear it.
Well, I certainly don't. I think, I know you did a newsletter, but I certainly think that the council needs to provide more information, and we need to know exactly what's going on. Unless you are at a meeting or you watch it on whatever it is called nowadays, you don't know. You do not know what is going on in the village. And people need that option, and they need to know, and they need to be educated.
I wholeheartedly agree. If we could get people involved, that would be fantastic. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to be brief, but I'm Laura Crowder, lifelong resident of Romeo, and I wholeheartedly believe it needs to stay status quo. I have absolute faith that the people in our community are intelligent enough people to, we should have some choice, and we have plenty of talented people out there, and I really do kind of feel like it is a slap in the face that we're even here having, like, it can be made in such a quick, decision. I feel like, no, we should be all about community, so that's my opinion.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else for the public hearing? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. It is 7, what time is it? 7:37, Catherine, for the record. I'm going to open up the regular session of the Board of Trustees meeting. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Oops. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, please. Bartholomew?
Here.
Edwards?
Here.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Here.
Parker?
Here.
Poznanski? Here. President Milzon? Here.
All 7 are present.
7-0. Okay. On your agenda, you have the consent agenda, item number 3. In that consent agenda, you have minutes from January 18th. You have the special meeting, February 7th.
I have a correction for the special meeting. You have your name down instead of mine for absence.
Well, it should be both.
Both were here.
Yeah, I don't mind. It'd be hard for you to run the meeting if you're absent.
Matt did.
Okay, closed session minutes, you have those in the agenda. You have council bills and a vendor report. The council bill is $49,783.61, and the vendor report reflects $238,700.45, and the meeting agenda. I do need to add an item to the agenda, so if we could just pull that out. Otherwise, we have a motion to approve the other items in the consent agenda with Zach's correction.
I'll make a motion to add that Zach was absent and that for your, we'll pull the agenda out.
Okay, we have a motion by Hart.
Support.
Support by Bartholomew. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
1.
All right, to the agenda, you had in front of you your place for the Parks and Rec proposal that was submitted at the last work session meeting, and I need to add that to new business item F, please. I apologize that that was not included in your packet. This just came up this afternoon at 5:15 as an agenda item, so.
What are we calling this?
The Parks and Rec proposal.
Parks and Rec.
I would would also like to add probably G, discussion regarding the documents that we've received from the treasurer in our emails. Specifically, the document that concerns me is that the village failed to provide its audited financial statements in a timely manner. So I would like us to discuss that, some clarification a little further.
So are there documents from the treasurer?
In our emails.
Yep.
Okay.
What is it, where's this going?
Item G, new business, documents for audit reports.
Sherry, I don't know if you could speak to that. Sorry to put you on the spot, or we can speak to it as a whole.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda with those two additions?
Make that motion.
We have a motion by Hart. Do we have support?
Support.
Support by Edwards. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Move on. Special presentations, we have none. There's one letter of correspondence that you can read in your packet from Senator Doug Wozniak, just informing us of some legislation and some programs that may be available, so please take your time to read that. We have regular public comment at this time. Is there anybody who wants to make public comment on anything you want to talk about? Hearing none, let's move on to our officer reports. My president's report for February of 2022. Negotiations have begun for the Romeo Middle School resource officer. I hosted a consortium meeting with all parties on January 24th to determine the proper process. Next steps include an intergovernmental agreement between Bruce and Romeo to grant jurisdiction to Romeo at the Romeo Middle School campus. The Bruce Township Board of Trustees authorized their legal counsel to draft the agreement, and at their February 16th meeting approved Mr. Siebert's initial draft. I should receive it shortly for Romeo's review. Once jurisdiction is established, we'll then look at funding options and seek approvals from all of the boards, which would be the school board, Bruce Township, and the Village of Romeo. We're working towards having an officer on site if it's approved in April. The Romeo Wastewater Treatment Plant Supervisor, Al Lapierre, Clerk Trapp, and I hosted a fact-finding tour at our wastewater treatment plant facility on February 7th. In attendance were County Drain Commissioner Candace Miller and members of her team, Macomb County Commission Chairman Don Brown, Lisa Damon Brown representing Senator Wozniak's office, Bruce Township Supervisor Mike Philbrook, and engineers from the firms of Hubble-Roth and Clark and Fishbeck. The purpose of the tour was to provide a site inspection and discussion for possible future expansion. A partnership with funding from Macomb County would allow our 2.2 million gallon per day Romeo facility to expand, permitting the acceptance of additional flows from neighboring industrial businesses in both Bruce and Armada townships. The financial benefit to Romeo in maintaining this facility, especially with the loss of revenue from the closure of the Ford engine plant, combined with the positive job creation and new tax revenues from the industrial growth in that area, would be significant. Our guided walking tour was a tremendous success, and Al and his staff received many compliments on the condition and efficiencies for plant operation. Candace Miller and Don Brown, both, who had never been invited to tour our facility, stated what an important role our infrastructure provides for this area. Everyone on the tour agreed that Romeo should be very proud of this investment, how meticulously it is cared for, and what a great job Al and his staff do out there. My sincere thanks to Al, Dennis, Doug, Steve, and Calvin for the job you do. Unlike our DPW and police officers who are out and about and visible to our residents as they do their jobs, where they receive many kudos and thank yous, these guys are more behind the scenes, and we should not take them for granted. Without them, we would be up to on our you-know-whats in the muck and mire that they take in, treat, and return to the East Pond Creek as drinkable water. The MIT TV went along with their crew and made a short PSA, and I'm encouraging all of you to watch the video on their page at themittv.com. It's video number 5127. It's about 3/4 of the way down on the page if you get to their Vimeo page. So check that out. It's very enlightening. And I certainly hope now that COVID's over that we can host some public tours of that facility. It's fascinating to go underground in the tunnels and look at all the infrastructure and how it actually operates. It's quite an impressive process, so thank you, Al. I attended the Samaritan House Pasta Night fundraiser on February 9th. Thank you to Ruth Hedebrecht for inviting me and Catherine to sit at her sponsored table. The Samaritan House does such an amazing job in caring and supporting so many in need right here in our community. They are currently collecting goods and monetary donations for their Easter food drive. If you're able to lend them your support, there are many who will benefit from it. As always, I continue to hold regular office hours to meet with our property and business owners to address their concerns. If you have a concern, compliment, or complaint that you need assistance with, please call my office, 586-752-3565, and I'm at extension 3. Thank you. Clerk's report.
On January 20th, I was honored to hold the Macomb County Clerks Association luncheon here in Romeo. This is the first time this organization has had a meeting in Romeo. There were over 25 clerks in attendance, including Macomb County Clerk Anthony Salini. This past January, I attended classes and I have passed my exam to become a State of Michigan Certified Assessor's Technician. Thank you to Al here for hosting a grand tour of our wastewater treatment plant. What an eye-opener to see what goes on behind the scenes over there. I have also started classes for Citizen Planner through the Michigan State University Extension. These classes will wrap up in the end of, by the end of March. Also, when you come through town this week, make sure you check out the Village Hall Snowman. She is ready for Winterfest this weekend. And speaking of Winterfest, I was just talking to Elizabeth on my way in here. She is looking for a few additional volunteers for warming station and crossing guard. If you have any questions, I have the sign-up sheet right here. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Yes, I had emailed out the annual information statement from Bedzinski and Company, the financial auditors. I do have a copy. I'm not prepared to answer any questions pertaining to it, but is this something, Megan, that you wanted me to answer now or later on?
We can do it at the agenda time.
Okay. Also, I received approval from the state, from the Department of Treasury to accept the computerized tax roll for this year. And I took an oath of office to serve the residents and the business owners to protect the village assets. That's my number one job function for the treasurer. If the treasurer is not protecting the village assets, then they're not doing their job. And I do have the authority to question and to request supporting documentation to fulfill my fiduciary responsibility as the treasurer. Residents ask me questions that if I don't have the answer for, I'm going to seek it out and I'm going to obtain the information to fulfill my obligation and again to protect the village assets. Are there any questions?
So what documentation did you request and from what department?
That would be on the agenda item coming up that we should probably discuss at that moment in time as well. Okay. That concludes my report.
Okay. Trustee reports. I think I started there last time. Let's start over here. Anything?
No.
Megan?
I do have a few things to mention. This past Friday, after receiving my Master Citizen Planner certification, this year I have to do some continuing education credits. So I attended our cohort meeting via Zoom, which is very convenient for me. So I was appreciative for them doing it Zoom. I also did some extra training through the Michigan Municipal League. I did some advanced training over the last weekend. It's very nice. Again, it was Zoom, so that's, again, very convenient. At no cost to the residents. I assume that cost is myself. And last week, hosted Trustee Talk along with Trustee Fowler. Had a few residents show up. It was very encouraging to have our clerk show up. That was a very nice compliment. Thank you. If anybody ever wants to, every 3 months, so quarterly, we host a Trustee Talk where I go over the last 3 months' business, motions that were made, and answer any questions or concerns that we might have. If I don't know the answer, find it out for you, and I'll get back in touch. And from there, attended the special meeting that the council had. Just would like to say how disappointed I was in the fact that the special meeting was even called. I don't think anything in that special meeting was of a time constraint that couldn't have been done at this meeting, and I felt it a misuse of the village tax dollars to pay us to come to that meeting. And also that during that closed session, I believe that the Open Meetings Act was violated, and have reached out to proper authorities to report it, to have it looked into, the Attorney General's office, the prosecuting attorney. I'm just waiting on that to unfold. So thank you.
Oh, Melanie.
I had the pleasure of attending the tree board meeting, and it was nice to have actually in-person meeting instead of having to do that through Zoom. And there's a lot of things that are going to be coming up as we go into Arbor Day, the celebration for that. The village was awarded Tree City USA, and we're looking at some positive things. One of the heavy lifting that they're going to be tackling, it's something that's long overdue, is our ordinance, our tree ordinance, to be able to really establish the guidelines of where they can and can't be, and what can be planted, that it works for everybody, because we have different constraints, you know, that are within that. So, Matt, are we just talking about the special meeting and anything? Because I'm kind of taken back a little bit with during our trustee reports, but the one thing, our president was not able to be at the meeting, and I think he should have been there. And what she's talking about, that was for an Open Meetings Act, was a person that was attending the meeting, and there's some undercurrent that's there. But if that went to the county again, we've gone through that kind of thing, and that's just political BS, and I don't think the residents appreciate that if you go through that. Anyway, I just didn't expect to say that, but I was, if we aren't going to discuss it, I had to say something.
Trustee Parker?
Yeah, I was approached by a couple residents, and they were asking why I vote no on paying the bills and stuff like that. And for several months now, I've let the administration know that I'm unable to open files that are emailed, and I've asked for them to be printed multiple times, and I've been denied that request. So without seeing all the information, I don't feel it's right for me to vote yes on something that I don't know. So that wraps that hopefully up, and hopefully I can get those printed and put into my board packet moving forward.
The PDF files, correct?
Yeah, exactly. The other thing, I asked for discussion to be added to the agenda, which I was denied, about the ordinance book and the update of the ordinances on the website, and I was denied that. I believe it was the beginning of last year, we were told that new books and updates were going to be available soon, and I've got nothing but pushback when I've asked for updated ordinances in a book, so I feel that I can skim through and be prepared fully for meetings when we're going over ordinances, and I've got a pushback. In no way, Clerk Trapp, is that harassment. I've just asked for updates.
I do have the meetings, the emails here if we want to go over that.
You please, because I've just asked for updates on when they'd be available.
And I've given you updates in the email.
You've given me no time frame. You've told me when they're available.
That's the only update I have. I can't give you something.
That's fine, because I believe Trustee Poznanski has received an updated ordinance section.
Well, and I've asked you, can you please clarify, and you refuse to clarify what
I've
you
made
are
it very clear that I've asked for a new ordinance.
Can we circle back to trustee reports? Because I just want to stay on task.
I can
it's
respect
10 minutes
that.
to 8.
I can respect that, but when I ask for something to be added then to the agenda so we can discuss it at an appropriate time, then that should be added. Thank you, I'm done.
Trustee Fowler?
Yeah, I was been approached by a couple of the applicants that applied for the weed license, and they said they're going to do a FOIA request to your office regarding the discrepancy in some of the application process. So.
That would be to the clerk's office. She's the FOIA coordinator.
Okay, well,
so,
it's coming that way.
Okay.
Just to let you know there. The guys have been talking to me, and I told them to see the president, see the clerk, and they said that they are going to FOIA the Village of Romeo for the information regarding the application process for the weed license.
We've received many FOIAs for that already,
Yeah,
so
okay.
I'm sure that she has all the information.
Well, they're
handy,
talking
but
to me, so I'm
that's okay.
pushing them your way, and
happy to give them the information.
they're pointing out discrepancies in the application, so
No problem. We'll take care of it. Anything from the planning commission? I don't think you.
Nope,
you-
they canceled
You
the
didn't
meeting.
meet, so there
Snow.
was nothing to add there. The Bruce Sewer Capacity Subcommittee meeting, we have not met since previous month. I did share some information that I did receive to both the meeting minutes from that tour. So hopefully you've read that and we can reconvene when there's something new. All right, let's move on to unfinished business. Up 9A, you have the payment in lieu of parking ordinance. This was discussed. The proposed ordinance, if adopted, will amend the existing provision in the Village of Romeo zoning ordinance, allowing for payment in lieu of required parking. The fee of $10,500 was recommended by HRC and approved by Village Council in October of '21. This ordinance has come back and forth for some corrections, and it was requested that Mr. Clark draft that with all of the concerns that were talked about, and that's what you have in front of you.
Question. Just clarification, what is this, second page, second paragraph, it talks about one on-street parking permit. An overnight parking permit shall be issued to one vehicle license plate, which shall be rewarded annually. Is that for residents that are living in that area?
Yes.
And I guess just clarify, why would it only be one? I mean, if we got multiple vehicles that don't have parking, shouldn't we be able to allow, I mean, if we've got a.
It's one per $10,500 fee, right?
I'm
So-
talking about the,
Right.
okay, I
right.
see, so it's one per. Okay.
Yes.
They have a
Clarification,
space
thank
for
you.
each car, but not two cars.
Yes.
So.
And the reason that's included in there is because when we allow
Makes sense, okay.
for zoning for especially short-term rentals like Airbnbs or any new apartments, they are required by their zoning law to have 2 spaces per sleeping room. And there are some facilities that need to be or are asking to be converted that do not have any on-site parking. So typically, or right now, there is no overnight parking allowed in the village, period. But if we're going to allow them to have the zoning for the use, we need to create a parking option for those people. So that's why that was put in there.
I didn't see a designated area.
There isn't. At this point, we haven't designated an area.
Okay, because we don't want them to just park on the street and say.
Correct.
Okay.
Right? My hope is that it will be in the Church Street parking lot when that's finished, but I don't know. It could also be Bailey Street. I guess it depends on the quadrant or the area of where
We will add that.
where the address is.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so that is one per spot paid for. They can pay an additional 50 for an overnight?
No, they would need to get 2 parking spaces at $10,500.
That's
the
right, yeah,
fee,
one
right.
one per 10,500, one per payment of, so if they
That
had
is
to,
my
if they had to buy
understanding.
10 spots to suit their building, they could then get 10 overnight parking permits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What else has changed since the last time we saw this? There's nothing highlighted, so I didn't know, I mean, in the past we've done that, like if something was added
Well,
or
when,
taken out.
Mark and I met with Steve Casson because we wanted to get everybody in the room to talk about what does the zoning ordinance say, what does our code of ordinances say, and how do we amend this? The version that I put before you a couple of months ago was for the code of ordinances, for the zoning ordinance, and it had a different number. And Mark's concern was that the ordinance was already spoken to and mentioned in our code of ordinances under number 482, I think. And so we suggested, for his recommendation, that we revamp what's in the zoning, bring it into the code of ordinances in one concise format. So to that means we added the application, that it has to go before the planning commission as the application. That was one of the things we talked about. We talked about the special parking fund, which was mentioned but worded a little bit differently in the previous version. It's more specific about what the funds shall be used for. Obviously, the overnight parking allowance was added into there. And I think that was it. Is that correct, Mark? Yeah.
That's my recollection as well. I did not compare this to what was discussed in November, December, whenever that was, but I believe Mrs. Malzahn has accurately identified the differences between this and what you considered before. Much of this is already in your ordinance, but as Mrs. Malzahn said, this condenses it or brings it under one ordinance provision.
Any other discussion or questions?
And you said we will address the location? Because the way this thing reads, on-street parking, someone could kind of take that off the wrong way and just park out there and say, well, I have this thing that says on street. So.
It would require an application, and so a permit, and so that permit application would have to be created, that process. And I would assume on that application, we would coordinate with our police department on how and where we would, either are they a sticker, are they something that hangs on the rearview mirror, or is it just by license plate number? How are they going to know that that vehicle is permitted to park in that space instead of, writing a ticket as they do at 3 a.m.? So that process would need to be created. This ordinance just allows for the process to be needed.
So Mark, is the on-street, will that cause an issue, legality or not? That reads right there.
Well, but the payment, the $50 payment doesn't mention on street.
I'm just talking about the words. The problem that's going to bounce back up at us.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think the permitted on-street parking spaces that are within the right-of-way is what exists now, and you can count those toward the number of necessary parking spaces. And so I don't mean to discount your concern, but I don't think your concern is the same as the $50 fee, unless I'm misunderstanding.
I just want to make sure we corral them in a certain spot, that's all. Not for them just to park anywhere and says, well, it says it in this ordinance that I can park on the street.
Do we have a motion yet?
No, we do not.
For overnight.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, I just wanna make sure we
to
corral it.
change the ordinance number 482 as proposed.
There's a motion by Hart,
Support?
support by Bartholomew. Any other discussion?
In Zach's note, I see what he's saying is, can we add language in there that would just, for that overnight parking that says in designated area or something like that?
Here's a word.
Well, you can if Mr. Hart agrees.
Mark, is that changing that word? Is that something you?
Is it needed?
Well, you have to decide what it is you're trying to do. And one of the things, it appears, related to the individual parking permits, if you will, is that, as Mrs. Malzahn said, Airbnbs or whatever, where you might need that space, I don't know that you want to now in your ordinance designate where that is, because you don't even have a development in front of you that may require it. You don't have the process.
The permit, perhaps?
It does say permit.
It does say
That
permit.
the permit, as described in the permit, to say.
Don't put the location on the permit.
Say where the park-
You can say whatever you want.
No, I understand, I'm just trying to get this, I'm trying to get this done.
The extent of the front.
If it's
It
a
says an
legitimate
right.
concern that we don't have a problem with, then I
Well,
want to hear it.
I'm not questioning the legitimacy of the concern. What I'm suggesting is you consider where you are in this process. Are you far enough along where you want to designate where these spaces will be? And if you are,
No, it
then
would just be
provide
by the
for it.
permit.
If-
Okay, my
if-
motion stands.
All right, we have a motion by Hart, we have support by Bartholomew. You just call a roll on that. Hart,
Yes?
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Krasinski,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Elzano. Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Okay. Agenda item 9B, Romeo Village Treasurer and Clerk positions. As we know, we have talked about this at last month's meeting. we agreed that we were going to have a public hearing, which we did this evening, and we asked Mark to, legal counsel, to draft what an ordinance would look like, which you have in your packet. You know, we had lots of public comment, and I certainly appreciate everybody who came out, and I respect your opinion, and I'm glad that it could be heard. I have a few others that are points that I just want to take and make if I could. We issue 2,399 tax bills here in the village. I did ask for voter information from both municipalities. I did not receive a response from Bruce Township. I requested it February 15th, so I'm not sure why I haven't heard back from Clerk Kraft. But Washington Township did supply some information, so at least half the village, we can account for that. We have 1,473 voters in Washington Township, so that's 2 voters average per household, right? So we roughly have 725 households that can vote in Washington Township. Even if you took half the tax bills at $2,399 and divided that, roughly, Bruce and Washington, there are clearly people who are paying taxes that don't get a vote in this village. And that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up. They have to follow the same rules, policies, and procedures that this board, this policy-making board, implements. But yet they don't have a voice. So when people say, don't take away my right to vote, take away my voice, well, I respect that. There are plenty of taxpayers, especially the majority of our tax base that comes from our businesses in our industrial park, that do not have a voice, and they rely on this board to make the policy to be that voice for them. So I hope that you will respect their voice as well as yours to be heard. I did hear from Clerk Forlini. He called me when he saw the article that Matt Farr put in the Macomb Daily. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to read it. It was pretty fair and objective, talking about some of the points. Did anybody want me to read that, or have you all had a chance to review that?
I haven't had a chance.
Okay, let me just take a minute. Right. It says Romeo officials will be seeking input from residents on proposed ordinance that would change the method of determining how 2 key municipality officials are seated in their positions. During the regular Village of Romeo Board of Trustees meeting on Tuesday, February 22nd, there will be a public hearing on a new ordinance that would make the village treasurer and clerk positions appointed rather than elected positions. Both positions are slated to be on the ballot in November of 2022, general elections for 4-year terms. Sherry Maddox is the current treasurer. Catherine Trapp is they misspelled it, Tripp, excuse me, is the current village clerk. Both positions are non-voting positions on village council. Village President Christine Melzon said she is seeking the change to bring more transparency and oversight to both positions. What it does is offer accountability, Melzon said during discussion on the issue at the January 18th council meeting. Right now, neither position has anything to do with policy input, and I think this is the proper way to find the best person for each job going forward. Currently, the only method for removing a person from either post for poor job performance or any other reason during their 4-year term if they are removed by the state or via a recall election. Locally, townships in Macomb County elect their treasurers and clerks, while some, but not all cities, these are appointed posts. The new ordinance would also open up the pool of candidates for positions to the people outside of the village. Trustee Zach Fowler spoke in opposition to the proposal. He is quoted as saying, "I disagree with taking the opportunity to vote away from the people. It would take at least 5 votes to enact the new ordinance, which Melzon admits is an uphill battle. If you bring that responsibility back to the board, we can ensure continuity, accountability, and service performance that our residents expect. The staff and residents have voiced their concerns to me, and I think that it is time for us to take a look at changing things. If the proposal is approved, village attorney would draw up a contract that would contain, among other things, length of service and salary for both positions if the ordinance is enacted. In a general law village, the clerk and the treasurer are not elected to make policy. They are elected to do a job," Trustee Bob Hart said during the January 18th discussion. "When you go from elected to appointed, you will get better candidates. You will also pay more for those skills," said village accountant Tim Sedlowski. The vote to hold a public hearing was 4-3, with trustees Fowler, Parker, and Poznansky all spoke out against the proposal, later voted against holding the public hearing. So that was his article. I did receive, like I said, a call from Tony Forlini after he read the article as the Macomb County Clerk. He understands, as elected, right, he's also been hired to do many jobs, but not the clerk jobs, that these are skilled positions, and he is in favor of the change. While he understands the balance of elected and the people's right to vote, these are frontline bureaucrat service providers, those skilled positions. So he spoke in favor of it. I also received one other email that I didn't have time to print, so excuse me as I read it from my phone. Says, I believe my comments were within the time frame, but here's a recap for consideration. Number 1, mitigating risk. A person voted in may not be qualified and experienced. Is it possible that errors could cost the taxpayers? A person appointed by the board can mitigate risk by being careful with the selection process. Could this change lessen any potential legal expenses, reputation of the community, and ultimately remove or lessen costs to the taxpayers if an elected person makes major errors due to a lack of experience? Elected officials are elected to protect the community as best they can. Experience matters, and we trust the board, who we elected to make major decisions on our behalf. Point number 2, there's only 3, so bear with me. It seems evidence anyone owning a business or running a corporation would want the most experienced person on their team. Why is that any different with the village? And lastly, the meeting may not be a true measure of what the community wants. Is there a survey that could be distributed to allow more voters to comment? This would give the people the power to comment. Many people will not be able to attend the meeting, so having another avenue to comment by providing an online platform should be considered. Sincerely, Elizabeth and Joe Kellogg. They live on Tilson Street. So, with that thought in mind, I open it up for other comments or discussion points.
I think it allows us to get a more professional person, to be honest. Because right now, you're just subject to whomever wants to run for these positions, and you don't know what their capabilities are.
Yep, that is one of the things that we have seen. We have also seen that the last 2 election cycles, right, the treasurers run unopposed. So there wasn't a huge pool of candidates where there were more people vying for the position, more of a choice for the residents to have made. While they could have still circled in the treasurers, and I hope that they did, they didn't have anything to vet out.
There should be a professional position.
I would agree with that. I would strongly point out that again, this discussion, and it's been honestly a little bit awkward in the village office because it's not about the job performance that these 2 individuals are doing. They're doing their best. I totally commend them for the job. They have a tough job, right? They're dealing with a lot of stuff. A lot of people come in, they're maybe not that happy, and somehow we find a way to put a smile on their face and take care of whatever their needs are. So it's not about that. But I know in the past when we assumed office, or when I assumed office in 2020, that audit year, we spent $50,000 on forensic auditing because of the past treasurer's mistakes, right? That cost the taxpayers $50,000 to correct the errors. If we had a professional paid person in that position with oversight by this board, right, we wouldn't have had to pay that money. So we would just run the risk of that happening again. It may not occur again. I don't know. I just know that level of service in the majority of villages hire that job. They also combine that job. So they can find one person that does both the clerk and the treasurer duties. You pay one salary in a small village where there may not be that many residents to service, right? You can have some efficiencies put in place by that. So potentially it could save money. I just throw that out there for consideration.
This has been something that I had looked back, years ago, and coming to working with the village, and I started out with the DDA for 8 years before getting elected onto the council. And the village was very unique at the time that the clerk was actually, people thought the clerk is the person that runs the village, and that's because for the last 10 or 15 years before, but 20 years, those responsibilities were given to the clerk, and that was specific and unique in Michigan. There are no other villages that were having that kind of a setup that we had. I am disappointed sometimes as far as the people, the public that do get involved, and I wish there was a better way that we could get things out. I did see a lot of things on social media, Facebook, people were posting that this is happening, and you know, the information, what I hear when I talk to people and I explain it, they've been in favor, not against it, from the standpoint of letting us make those kind of decisions as far as what is best for the village. And I went through at the last meeting, and I'd like to just recap, and some of the things have been said over, but it is a majority. There's out of 207 general law villages, there is only 82 treasurers that are still elected. The rest of them are appointed and hired, and sometimes it's dual responsibility that they have. So this isn't something that's new. And to talk about taking away anybody's right to vote, until those are things that speak to my heartstring. You know, I am freedom-loving, democracy, true and true person, and I don't want to take anybody's right of vote or anything. What I want to do, just like the treasurer said, it's their responsibility. It's my responsibility to look out for what the best interest of our village is, as I see it. I look at all the different things and I make a decision that's based on that. There's nothing like we want to get our people in there and us and them. This is something that is going forward for the village that I love. And I've seen firsthand some of the things that have been there. I asked Sherry to run. I said, Sherry, hey, there's nobody running for treasurer. You know, you had the banking experience, maybe you should get in there. You know, for the last 2 times, there was only one candidate. So what kind of a choice is that for the village? Sure, you guys get to vote for that one person. Doesn't matter if they get 1 vote, they're in. But what kind of a choice is that? And once they're in, you have them in that position for 4 years. So what's going to happen tonight, you know, I don't know. I would even be open to put in more discussion, because if people at least can hear both sides of what the argument is, instead of take away a right to vote, or this is another step to turn the village into a city, those are just not valid arguments. It's the same reasons that other villages have made these choices before us. So being able to get qualified candidates from outside of our square mile is a big key, and making the person be accountable. And it is accountable to the board. It's not a rubber stamp. And Debbie, I think Debbie has left, and Sherry and Christine would know, Debbie was working very hard helping our past treasurer to do the job, the previous one. There was all kinds of problems. Debbie helped. She sat there and did hand-holding to take it through that process. So again, unlike the townships, where those people sit on the board and make decisions, these people do a job just like Tim, Al, Chief Dan. They do a job, and they love our village, and they do the best job that they can do, and you heard all the kudos. They were not elected. They were brought into the position because of what they can do. And certainly, I would think anybody that lives in the village that wants the job would get a bump, a preference to be in that. So whatever's going to happen, I feel great, because at least I feel good that I brought up what I believe in, and that's why I believe that it's the best thing for the village. So let the chips fall where they may. Thank you.
I would like to say, to sit there and say that the ideas of somebody that are different than yours are meritless is just arrogant. Our residents know what they want. They have spoken to us, maybe not as many as we would like, because it didn't get out there. What did we do as a council to get this information out to our people?
Nothing.
Personally, I did what I could, which is social media, because it's free. I understand a lot of our people aren't on social media. From there, I put it in the Record newspaper as a letter to the editor, because again, that's free. But it wasn't posted in our local newspaper, either of these public hearings. And after that, what else did we do? We should do better as a council, I agree. Whether we send out postcards anytime it has a specific public hearing, something else needs to be done. Our people need to know this is a big deal. The fact that in our general law there is a right to referendum on this topic, there are only a couple spots in that law that allow for this, which means that those that created that knew how important this was. Now, I will give it to you that if this passes and this goes through, the feeling that your vote is taken away, I would say that your vote is combined. Instead of having 2 votes, your vote turns into 1, and it turns into one larger one. I don't think by taking the vote away from the people and putting it into the hands of the politicians takes away the politics of that. I think it intensifies it, and that's why I say your vote then is more important than who you seat at this table here. So you would still have a voice. You would just really need to make it imperative that you have it heard and that you get it known out to the people. The biggest thing we're great about here in Romeo, gossip, talking to each other, community. That's our #1 asset, getting things out there. It's harder in the wintertime, I understand, but spring, summer, we're out there walking, talking. I can't stand behind this, especially if there's no imperative reason at this moment. If the clerk and the treasurer are doing okay and it's not specifically about them, I just can't see going forward with this.
Well, the timing on that, and I think I spoke to it last month because I called the county clerk's office and I said, what's the filing deadline to run for these offices? If they're up on the November ballot, anybody can file at any time. And I said, well, what if they file to run for an office and we change and we remove that position? What happens with that application? And Roger said, I have no idea.
Good question.
What happens with that position? They said they've never sort of dealt with that. So that's the impetus to talk about it now, to try and, if we're considering making a change, or if we're going to consider some sort of compromise, send out a survey, put it on a public hearing, another public hearing, have a town hall meeting. I mean, whatever this board wants to do to get the information out there, I'm open to suggestions. But that's the timing, the key to do it now before somebody would go through the effort of actually filing that position and filing that petition and paying the fee.
Understandable.
Yep. So.
Before I became trustee about 6 years ago, for years I would watch the meetings on television. Every one of them are taped, and I think that, and I knew everything that was going on. I mean, to say that, oh, we don't, they're not telling us anything. It's like, well, and if somebody comes up to me sometimes and says, hey, I heard this, and I really feel strongly about this, and I'll say, oh, well, when's the last time you watched the meeting? Oh, I don't watch meetings. If you want to be informed as to what's going on, and people need to kind of seek out the information, and the videos are every month. They're on all the time. You can look them up. You don't even have to be a computer wizard. But the only thing I have to say about the issue here at hand is, I think an appointed person would be better. But from after what I heard, all the comments from the audience as to how many, and I know Romeo is full of very intelligent people, and I think that no matter how it goes, well, I mean, if it's voted down, it sounds to me like we're going to have a lot of smart people running for those positions this fall. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be a positive.
So I'm going to make a motion to table this, but I make a motion to table it, but I'd like to invite Megan to sit down with me, and perhaps you and I could think tank how we could engage the community better so that we can maybe get a bigger pool of opinions that we could really sort of take into account. And I don't know if that's a survey, I don't know if that's a mailer. If anybody else wants to join in that subcommittee, we can certainly work to include you, because I would love to have your feedback and input on how we can do a better job of communicating to you. So, I'm gonna make a motion to table this for tonight.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And I'm glad we're doing that, because I'm very much on the fence on this one. And I think more input from residents and business owners will help me, because I see both sides of this one.
And I just have
So
one more
this-
thing. Go ahead. I'll let you
Go
finish.
ahead.
The only other thing I had is, I don't want people, because, for lack of knowing what's going on, I don't want anyone out there to think that all these positions for the Village of Romeo are going to be appointed and you can't vote for anybody. These are just two positions, still gonna be able to vote for the president, trustees, and other things. It's not across the board, it's just these two positions that we're talking about. And that's all I have.
We still have discussion. So, with the ordinance that was presented, things that would, I don't know, change, maybe help change or persuade, I don't know if that's the word I want to use. I don't like in the wording here how it talks about the nomination by the village president and then appointment by the majority vote of the village council. I feel that this is something we're gonna do. I feel that this should be a council nomination, council reviews, application,
Hiring committee. Would you
as
feel
a
comfortable
whole.
if it was a 2/3 majority vote?
and then a 2/3 also on top of that.
Because obviously we have this 4-3 split, right? Everybody knows we have a 4-3 split. So, I'm not looking to make that,
Yeah, because I feel these are important positions.
I agree.
And it shouldn't be politically driven by any means, and you guys made a very good point with that. So, yeah, a 2/3 vote, council reviewed and nominated, not just the president. And regardless of who the president is, we shouldn't make,
Let me just say, before you get too far along in your thought process, that language is taken right out of the statute, that it's a presidential nomination and a council appointment. So on the face of it, I don't think you can change that. Whether or not you could, as you know, to change the positions from elected to appointed, it requires a 2/3 vote. Without delving into it, which I gladly will do if you ask me to, I don't know that you can increase the percentage for the council's appointment. So I don't believe on the face of it you can change it from the statutory language, appointment by the or nomination by the president, appointment by the council, whether you could require a supermajority for that confirmation. I don't know, but as a threshold matter, I do not think you can change the nomination by the president and the appointment by the council, because that is in the statute.
We could have a hiring committee and a recommendation from a committee.
Sure, you
And
can.
that's how the process goes. I don't have a problem with anything. I actually agree with that, those kind of changes if we can do it. So maybe that's something else we can see what our options are in the ordinance.
yeah, I mean, if you can look into it, Mark, and see if that's a change that can be made, that'd be appreciated.
I would say I disagree with tabling it. We're just kicking the can down the
Correct.
road. I don't see the point in continuing the discussion. Our
Let's
people
end it.
have spoken. They don't want us to further discuss this. Let's stop wasting
Correct.
their time.
I totally agree. Get it out the way.
I did. Justin supported it, to table it, to maybe take it to a workshop that.
I think it's important that we table it and at least try to get more information so people can fully understand.
People don't want
I
it.
don't think it's a lack of understanding.
don't want
Give them the information.
They got the information. They spoke tonight.
Yeah.
They said, hell no.
All right, so we have a motion and we have support. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Two.
Two opposed. Okay, so we're going to table that. Megan, would you agree to just have a conversation and sit down and maybe a little workshop where we could look at this ordinance and we could look at some options to communicate to the residents, see what we come up with, and then report back maybe next month with some possibilities?
I don't think I will go in further into the ordinance that I don't support, but I'm all about getting information out to the people.
Okay, so she doesn't want to look at the ordinance. Well, then I'll review the ordinance with Mark to see what the options are as far as clarifying the 2/3 vote. And if you want to, maybe we can sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about, a mailer or survey or something,
If
yeah.
anybody on the council has maybe a suggestion on how we might communicate with the, we could just
Okay.
email you with any
That'd be perfect.
recommendations on how we can reach our residents.
If we can
Mailers
still,
seem to be pretty effective.
They are.
yeah, if we could still
Yeah.
have a little more discussion before we move on. Question that's been kind of pondering would be something, Christine, I think you just read it, that was in the paper, Bob, you've mentioned, and I think Mr. Tarr mentioned it also earlier, about holding these people accountable. And just kind of paint a picture, I mean, we recently just had the DDA director with the Winterfest. I think had to call a special meeting of the DDA to get approval to spend funds. Last minute, we got called in to approve an event permit, last minute. So, nothing wrong, mistakes happen. But we've got a hired person in the DDA director's position. They made a mistake. So now, how do we hold that person accountable? Or how are we gonna hold these people accountable in a situation like that where, yeah, they might mess up. The treasurer might have messed up in the past, and you said Debbie helped figure some stuff out. Well, what if the person that we hire or appoint to that position makes a mistake?
I would say
What are we
it's the
gonna do?
same if Tim made a mistake, if our chief made a mistake, or Al made a mistake, as, you know, supervisor, if they had any of those kind of problems and they were enough that it came to this board, then that's how it would be.
I mean, what do you do though? I mean,
Fire them, right? If it's that serious of
That's
offense.
serious, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the mistake you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I
Plus,
mean.
she just took this position on, she's been going 100 miles
I
an
respect
hour.
that, but
Doing a
hopefully we hired a
fantastic
qualified
job.
person, right? And, cool, they made a mistake. So how do you hold people accountable in this situation? Have a conversation with them, talk with them?
Well, each
If
situation.
Catherine or Sherry made a mistake,
They
wouldn't
answer
it be
to
the same thing?
They answer to
Hey.
the village president.
Right.
Or the
Unfortunately,
board,
no.
right?
Or the board.
Yeah, yeah, so what do you do?
Right
How would
now-
you handle that?
I mean, the DDA director is, if the DDA has a problem, now Elizabeth has a lot of experience in the community, I mean, she was.
Yeah,
chair
I'm
of
just
the
using that
library
as an example,
For years,
right?
so I
And
wouldn't throw her under the bus for that one, how that happened.
exactly, it was an honest mistake, oversight. How do you handle that? If it's gonna be reporting directly to you, how do you handle that?
Well, each
I mean,
situation.
it's an honest
different.
question, because
Absolutely.
I wanna know how we hold these people, or this person accountable if there is a mess up, any
Talk to
different
them
than
about
we
it,
would
they
talk
learn from it,
to.
and they grow.
What's that?
You talk to them about it, they learn from it, and they grow. Just like
So-
you would with anybody.
So how would that,
any
how
other
would that be any different from an elected position?
Because an elected position, you would never have the ability to fire them. And
Well, but you
and
but
they're
you
not-
can still have a conversation, right? And you
But
can still
no,
say, hey,
you
look,
can't really even
we gotta
have
get on
certain-
track with this,
No,
right?
Justin, you can't really even have that because they don't answer to the village president. They answer only to the people that voted for them.
I can respect it, but we
Period,
can-
end of
but-
story.
but-
So you can't have that conversation.
You're not allowed to?
No.
You're not
Well, you
allowed to
can.
at all.
You can.
I can't call up Catherine and say, hey, you know, I think we handled something wrong. Like,
Kath-
I think
and
Megan
Catherine
sent an
has-
email
and Catherine
saying,
has
hey,
a
we forgot
decision
some stuff in the
to be able
board
to hang
packet.
up on you or listen to you. That's her decision. If you were her boss, she would have to listen.
In Macomb County, wasn't there was
As
it
an
the clerk
elected-
that they had a problem with?
She doesn't have to
Who
listen.
was it?
Oh, that lady?
Was it whether she was a resident and all that stuff, and they,
that was a
they
nightmare.
exposed all the stuff, and they had the hardest time trying to get her to resign.
Banger?
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
I mean, like I said, I'm on the fence, so I'm asking questions because I want to understand this
They're
better.
legitimate
Because
questions. Absolutely. Let's talk
I
them
see the
through and
benefit,
See what we're,
you know, and
where
I
we're
see
at.
the negative. I see both sides. I've talked to a lot of people, other municipalities, people in different positions. So I definitely think tabling it to get more information from residents, business owners is a smart plan on this.
I mean, over the last couple of years, I think we've all expressed some frustrations with each one of them. Megan had some complaints about myself, right? Justin and Zach, I know you've had some concerns with the clerk over the year, and I think, you know, we're all sort of frustrated with that. I'm just looking for the future. How do we put a service model, the best service model in place for the village office for that function? That's a day-to-day, frontline employed job doing a specific function that requires skill sets.
I have
That's
a
all.
question. So Sherry was the only person to run for treasurer. What if no one ran for treasurer?
I asked that question at the
had
last
that
meeting.
discussion last
Then the board appoints somebody.
Okay.
until
I
the
didn't
next
recall
election
that.
cycle, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Can we move on?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we have unfinished business, item C, Friends of the Village Park. On February 2nd, 2022, the Treasurer's Office sent an email to Ford Fund requesting information on the funds that were issued to the MIT-TV 501c3 for the purposes of park renovations. President Malzahn received several phone calls from the Ford Fund Government Relations Assistant Manager asking for clarification and intent behind the correspondence sent from the Village Hall. Based on that discussion, I was mortified, for starters. I actually had to walk out of the office because I was pretty upset that the message that Ford gave to me was, on what authority is your treasurer contacting this fund and calling into question the integrity of the village office? Why are they contacting me? We gave the money to a 501c3. They would be responsible for the record keeping. So I had a lengthy, multiple conversations with Stephanie from the Ford Fund and assured her that this was not authorized by my office or any of the Board of Trustees for the treasurer to make that phone call and reach out. I then drafted this letter, and I would like the board just to understand the positioning and authorize me to send this letter on behalf of this village council, asking Ford to not, rescind the $100,000 or the $70,000 that they've already given and the additional $30,000 that they were prepared to allocate to the village for 2020-22. So $100,000 Ford Motor Company is given to a 501c3 to benefit the village. I think each one of us in our elected office, as the treasurer indicated, has a fiduciary responsibility for the betterment of this community. And when you have an entity that's willing to give you $100,000 to do that, we better step up and say thank you. And we should work to collaboratively, together to make sure that they understand our gratitude and put this money to the best use. So, have you all had a chance to review that letter? Mm-hmm. And
I actually.
Can I ask permission to address it, to defend myself in the regards? So bear with me as I have collected numerous details of information. And I don't have the verbal communication, Christine, when I did request to you for verification of the front and the back of the check when the check was deposited, copy of the bank statement showing the deposit and any statement since the original deposit, itemization of a financial statement, letter or communication from Ford indicating intent to where the funds were to be allocated, any signers or any other individuals involved with overseeing the funds, the IRS determination letter for establishing a nonprofit, and articles of incorporation. Now, this was the first letter that was sent to you, marked high importance on September 16, 2021. I then sent another request to you on October 27th to please give me an update with the requested documents. As I indicated previous month, January, and I gave an overview of the treasurer's responsibility for cash receipting all funds that come into the village office are to be receipted through the treasurer's office. So I was doing a follow-up in the regards. Now, I went back through some past records, and when I was elected and took office back in 2018, I was approached by Chief Dan, and there was a grant that had been awarded by Ford in the amount of $10,000. And Chief Dan did provide me with a copy of an email that I did reach out to Ford back in 2019, requesting information on this $10,000 grant. That's when I received communication that a check had been issued to the Romeo Lions Club, which in turn, I spent probably 6 months working with the Romeo Lions Club and the current treasurer that had just taken office, and she responded to me in emails, an email that I dated back March 26, 2019, to introduce myself regarding the check that had not cleared our account or had been deposited into the village account, nor had it cleared their account, and if she could contact me, which she finally did back on May 2nd. The treasurer from the Romeo Lions Club and apologized that she had been dealing with an emergency and that she would follow up on it. And then on May 2nd, 2019, I CC'd you, Christine, and Catherine with the follow-up of the communication that I had from the Romeo Lions Club treasurer. But going back to it, I had the same protocol as I did with this $2,000 grant through the police, in notes to make sure that it was in turn receipted to the village, which the Lions made a check, which I do have a copy of it, and I just need to go back into the records to see actually when it was receipted into the village account, and then I do have a copy of the general ledger.
We're talking about Fords, right?
Yes, but this was, so basically what I'm stating is I followed the same protocol when I took office back in 2018 and 2019. I worked on a grant. So I did take the initiative, reach out to Ford and follow through with the Romeo Lions Club to make sure that those funds did in turn come back to the village to be receipted. And then once those funds are receipted, then I work with the accountant who sets up in the general ledger the actual purpose and intent of how the funds were to be distributed, and that's the oversight part on where chief would have to send in invoices and such to balance out his general ledger.
The difference, if I could, your comparison is not apples to apples, because the village actually made a purchase utilizing those funds that came from Ford Motor Company. So the funds transferred to the 501c3 because, again, a charitable donation cannot be receipted directly by the village. It must go through a 501c3 authorized to handle the proper amount of money. With the village chief of police purchased body cams or bulletproof vests or something, yes. So the village actually made a purchase, and those monies were covered from the Lions, from Ford through the Lions to the village to cover that expense. This money is not going to be an expense. The village park expense is not going to be borne through our general fund.
So is this village, the bottom line it comes down to, you've stated in numerous meetings and you've had representatives come and say that they're behind this Friends of the Village Park. Is this $70,000, $100,000 village money? Is this municipal money?
No. That's why it wasn't received by the village. That's why your office didn't have any authority to reach out to them. As we've claimed before, this money is allocated for a village asset, right? An asset, which would require approval if we're going to change the asset by the planning commission, by whatever that is. But those funds are being utilized by the Friends of the Village Park 501c3, not village taxpayer funds.
If I may, interestingly enough, I spoke with Miss Stephanie, I'm not quite sure, Freeze. On February 9th, I had a nice phone conversation with her. She was very forthcoming, answering any questions that I had, any concerns that I had. I wrote down notes so I could say exactly the words that came out of her mouth, because obviously we've talked about this a few times. Her words, I asked, if this is not used for the village park, will we have to return this money? Such as with other grants, if you don't use it for the intended purpose, you will have to give the money back. She said, no, there's no takesy-backsies, was the fun word she used. I asked if there was a limit as to the time frame that this money would need to be used, and again, she spoke and said no, that once it is given, it is up to our discretion. And I also asked if it's not spent on its intended use, will it have to be given back then? And she said no. She did say it was given to a temporary fiduciary. She did not name them, but now I see that in here it says MIT TV. So it was given to MIT as a temporary holder, assuming that they will hand it over to Friends of the Village Park account. But based off this information, I would like to make a motion to direct the village president to contact the chair of the Friends of the Village of Romeo Park and respectfully request that all of this Ford Fund monies, the 70, anything that comes further, be passed on to the Village of Romeo post haste.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Poznanski.
Okay, so
I'm sorry,
any
who said?
discussion?
Yeah, we are, but who supported?
Okay.
Zach supported that. Okay, discussion on that?
Okay, one thing that I keep coming back to is Ford has given 70,000 and the count has 120,000 in there because 50,000 has been added. I would ask Ms. Poznanski, did you tell the person that you're glad that you have the money, that actually it's another 50,000's been donated, we're gonna do wonderful things, so maybe they'd give us another 30,000, or did you say, well, if we don't use it for this, do we have to give it back? That's the last thing I would, as a trustee, have you say to Ford Motor Company. That jeopardized the other 30. She would sit there and say, boy, they're saying they may not use it for this. They were asking if they had to give it back. They were doing that. All the questions, does Ford, who has plenty of people to donate to, gonna sit there and go, let's just pass on Romeo. It's a little can of worms over there. We got too much stuff going on. That's what I would do. When I saw this, I'm like shaking my head.
Did you
Whose
reach out
side
to
are
her,
we
Bob?
on?
Did you reach out to her, Bob?
Pardon?
Did you reach out to Miss Fries?
I'm sorry?
Did you reach out to her?
I'm
Ms.
comfortable
Freeze?
with all this. I think this is a great thing. You
reason
had
to
the
bother.
attorney come.
When or if you reach out to her, you may say what you would like to say. I asked and had a conversation in the way that I thought was appropriate.
Right, I understand, and I'm shaking my head. I'm comfortable with this. I think this is a wonderful thing, and I can't wait to see what's gonna happen to the park. I mean, it's been said here at the meeting, if there's any money left in the account, there's the person that you're persecuting has taken $50,000 of their own money and added it to it. I would think that is end of story. You can't sit there and go, well, are they gonna steal the money? No, they put $50,000 in there. I'm so sick of
Those
this.
things are so closely watched, those 501(c)(3)s, you can't, the guy that came in to give that talk, the attorney who does this, he's done it for big, down in Detroit, he's like, I would not jeopardize, his future, his career, by trying to do something, there's just no way, it just doesn't
Why don't you
happen.
talk to Lisa McLean? She's on the board on this, right?
Okay.
Or one of her person. Why don't you talk to Lisa and say, Lisa, do you think this is up and up? I mean, come on.
Miss Stephanie did say that they do due diligence, that she has a staff that looks into everything, and I said, I thanked her and I told her that yes, that did make me feel more comfortable and that I appreciated that and that it was good to know.
Did Sherry reach out to you, Christine, when she was gonna do this, to tell you what she wanted to do?
I had no advance notice. I was in receipt of her email requesting the documents, as we were with Justin, requesting the documentation. None of that documentation is information that I have housed. I do not have that information when it was requested to me. I don't have any information to give back to them, which is what the answer was. If you want it, here's the entity that is responsible.
Go talk to them.
Go and talk to them.
Well, I mean, Ruth did stand up and make very clear that you are the liaison to the village, right? Which means that you're our point of communication for this. So when we ask you for the information, we would hope we would get it, right? So I guess maybe all this would be a lot calmer if originally, right off the bat, we were given the information, not how many months later are we now seeing stuff. And I know you said you requested it, Sherry. I mean, this is from October. Great, I see 120 was deposited. Where's all the updated bank records. Is that hard to produce? I mean, you can walk in Tri-County and they can print it in about 32 seconds. So I guess just if everything was more transparent from the beginning,
My concern
this
is.
would be a lot calmer.
My concern is, Justin, what's the lack of trust?
Right.
What's the lack of wanting to better the village through this gift of money and seeing what great things can happen
It's great.
with this
We're
village asset?
talking two different things here, right?
I don't
You're
think we
talking
are.
gift of money, and then we're talking transparency.
Right.
Two different things.
You're assuming.
It's been requested from the beginning, just like you would do with anything.
And we had
Show me the information, show me the paperwork. I've asked how many times, and now we're just getting it because you're gonna draft a letter apologizing on my behalf
Yeah,
to Ford?
I am.
I mean, initially, I'm gonna say, no way do I wanna be any part of apologizing to Ford for any elected official or anyone in this village doing due diligence to follow up on anything.
I think she did
Because
a great
you
thing.
talk in here about how she didn't have direction by myself or the board of trustees. You've also then went out and facilitated funds from Ford to be sent to Ruth without any direction from this board or any authorization, all on your own. So if you're gonna say that she can't, but you can, as an elected, that's bullshit.
I would ask you to please go back and look at the job duties, because what I did is specifically within my job description, to work on behalf of the village for betterment. And that's exactly what this is. I saw an opportunity, I reached out, I requested that, hey, you wanna donate, you wanna help us promote this park? This is our community gathering place, this is our event, this is our social area, right? Let's make this a hub that's welcoming, that's warm, that's ADA compliant, that's, for any level.
And 60% of the business owners I talked to in that area said, I'd rather have parking. So, again, what happens now that we've formed all this and you went out of your way and then the planning commission or anyone says, no, we don't want to do anything, we want to do something different with that space, what do we do then? Thank you, all these people, for donating all this money, we're not going to use it for that, we're just going to let it sit here and do something different? Don't you think there should have been some type of approval or discussion, transparency, I think, as I think you guys just said, transparency with all this from the beginning, right?
Wasn't that on our goals and objectives?
It was. The Village Park has
It's
been
on our
talked about for
goals.
years and years. And again, it's my frustration that there isn't this collaborative for the betterment of the village, that we're all working together without going into detail at the special meeting that you claim there was an OMA violation. Had I been in attendance, and I apologize, at the very last minute, I was very ill, and I called Matt with 5 minutes before the meeting and said, I simply cannot stand up, and I cannot attend, and I'm sorry to throw you under the bus like that. He did a great job. I tried to fill him in as best I can. I would have been able to offer some additional information that I wasn't here to present, and I did not have time to pass that on to him. There is the possibility of other donors who have reached out to donate assets, possibly another location for a park. But again, people are hesitant. Why would they do that when there's potential backlash, when there's potential political positioning?
Again, this all goes back to
something
transparency
that's
from the beginning,
benefiting us.
Christine. 100%. If you would have presented this at goals and objectives, hey, I'm looking to work with Ruth to form this fund, everyone would have been in the know from the beginning. Why did it have to be so top
She went to
secret?
Ford's first.
What's that?
She went to Ford's first, got the funding, and then realized we have to have a 501(c) who can handle that. Chamber of Commerce can't handle that kind of money.
The Ford County Commission
That's too much.
is null and void at this point?
Well, now
I mean, I think that's what they do.
On top of it, she's already donated more money. You know what I don't understand? It's like, she goes out and gets Ford to give us $70,000 to fix up our park. And there's always something wrong with anything good she does to you. It doesn't matter what it is.
All I'm
I gotta
asking
find
for
a
is
problem with this.
transparency.
Where's the money? Transparency, everybody. But I mean,
Transparency, exactly.
It gets old.
Exactly. Transparency's old.
No.
Transparency's old.
No, anything she does that's great, you come against. That gets old.
Because I've asked for transparency.
Yeah,
Because
Ruth and
village
her lawyer have been
residents
here
and
to
business
explain-
owners have
You know
reached
what?
out to
They're
me.
gonna be in here again to
asking.
re-explain it to you. And you're always like, oh, okay, thank you.
All right, let's calm down and circle back and be productive, because I think, I would hope we all want the same thing.
There's a motion on the
We
floor.
all want this village to be left better for our time of service here. That's my intent, that was my goal. I saw an opportunity, presented to Ford. When Ford notified me that they were actually going to commit funding for this, I had less than 24 hours to find a 501c3 who could create an invoice and send it off to them to receive the money. Less than 24 hours, and I was actually out of town. I was in Ohio.
But now there's been a second payment and now a third coming?
Well, we don't know if there's a third coming or not. It was
Potentially.
originally allocated, but there's now some concern that that may not come our way, because Romeo has sort of been cast in a bad light. I'm not gonna lie.
So then the funds only came into your possession then on October 5th, because that's when it was deposited. So if you only received a 24-hour notice, you were able to get a bank account set up and get the money deposited.
No,
And then
which
have
is
the
why it went to
additional-
the MIT-TV first, and then Ruth formed the Friends of the 501c3 and had the bank account created.
But if
And then
you-
the money was transferred.
But if you would have provided to me the documentation, or to Justin or any other resident that may have requested this information, we wouldn't be here having this conversation.
But I didn't
right
have
now.
the information to give it to you. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility was to request the money. How it transferred, I had nothing to do with the invoice that was sent. I had nothing to do with receiving the check. It didn't come to my address. It didn't come to I didn't walk it to the bank. I had nothing to do with that transaction, Sherry. My office housed none of these documents that you requested. I provided Ruth Heidebrecht here with her attorney to explain the process multiple times. She's went through that with this board, and yet there's still the accusations and the statements at the board level. Last month, for instance, if there's any money left, right? That sort of comment, again, deteriorates the level of trust
Absolutely.
that the community has in us to do this job. Are we working
Exactly,
together?
and it goes both ways, Christine.
For their best
100% goes
interest
both
or not?
ways. The transparency, and
And I
are
can't
you or
believe-
are you not the liaison for this 501c3?
There's a list of
Yeah,
liaisons. If you-
and you're listed
if
as a
you've seen it,
liaison,
yes.
so if we can ask you for information,
You can ask, and if I don't have it, I don't have it. That's the truth. If you can ask it, I didn't have it, and I told you that. I didn't have it.
Asking to retain this money and to have it in the village's possession does not mean that we don't support, doesn't mean at least that I don't support. Could you please stop with the side talk? This is not your time, this is not your time to speak. You are here to take the minutes, and it's disruptive.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Just because we would like to have the money in our funds, doesn't mean we don't support this venture. Everyone can see the village park. It could be improved. That's all.
Megan, are you gonna ask Ruth to give the 50,000 to us too, because we don't trust her? Or are you just gonna be satisfied with the 70? What about the 50,000 Ruth has donated? You're gonna tell her, no, we don't want that?
Bob, if you would ask me a legitimate question, I would answer it. I think that's an errant question
Okay,
to ask.
you want her to give the 120,000,
As I
including her
stated in my
50,000.
motion, any money given to the village from the Ford Fund.
Yeah.
So we have a motion on the table by Poznanski.
Second.
We had support by Fowler. Can you call the roll on
Can you
that?
read the motion one more time, please?
The motion I have is to have President Mills reach out to Ford and ask them to give.
Not Ford.
No, I'm sorry, it was to the MIT-TV.
Oh, the TV, sorry.
Pass that on to her.
or to the Friends of the Village Park.
That was the motion I stated.
Are you gonna put a dollar amount on that, or no? Just all funds? Just, I wanna be clear.
As I stated, funds from the Ford Fund.
From the Ford money.
There's the Ford Foundation, there's the Ford Fund. This was from the Ford Fund.
Sorry, I think we have one more public comment. Or one more comment.
Mark, are you able to comment on
Okay.
this letter and make your,
Ruth wants to make a
Provide your
comment.
insight
She's in
on
the
this.
hospital with her dad, so she wants to know if it's agreeable if she calls in.
I'm okay with it.
Fine with me.
I got her on speaker.
Okay.
Would you like me to stay here?
Yeah.
Sorry to
Just
interrupt.
sit here by the camera. All right. Ruth, did you have a comment to make?
Yes, I did.
Can everybody hear?
I'm not at the meeting. My father is ailing and I'm in the hospital with him. So I'm not there at the meeting tonight. But there are a few items that you're missing here in this meeting. Number one, I have been actively working on a project to restore the village of the park village, for about 3-4 years. But we were never able to get enough people interested in getting together to collect funds to help the park. We always thought it would be better if we had a nice green space with things to do, things to gather, people to gather at the park. I was working with Ford Motor Company when Christine told me about it, that they were interested in it. She came to me because she knows that I was interested in improving our village park for years. She put me in contact with Ford Motor Company, and I created a relationship with both of those women. That's why they sent me, the MIT TV, who was a nonprofit, that check. I had to do a lot of paperwork to assure them, and they have all that paperwork, to assure them that they were giving that money to a proper 501c3. I will repeat for the 4th time to the board that the reason why I gave another $10,000 of my own money was to create a 501c3 called the Friends of the Village of Romeo Parks, Inc., in order to secure and be transparent, because all 501cs are transparent. In order to create a 501c3 that would be connected to the private businesses that were interested in getting involved in this project. Because not only were we going to beautify the village park, we were also going to go to the next park that needed beautification. And that's why the title of that company, of that 501c, was formulated as the Romeo Village Parks, plural, Inc. So that not only have I donated right now $50,000 that is also in Tri-County Bank in a separate account along with that money from Ford's, but I also spent $10,000 as reported directly to you by the lawyer who manages that account. That account is being managed by a nonprofit lawyer that has managed, I don't know, what did he report to you? Over 20 nonprofits? And just because you have something that you are upset with the president for what she's done and what you foresee as her controlling it and not you, you have put the MIT TV once again into a political position where we do not deserve to be. There is no question from day one where that money has been. When you have asked, I've gotten up on the podium and I've told you where it is. You can go to our Facebook page. You can see exactly who's on the board, who are the board members, and who are the committee members, and who are the liaisons. Have any of you gone to our Facebook page? No. But you choose to cause problems and cause doubt with a company that's ready to give us another $30,000 for that park.
Ma'am, you are making assumptions that you have no right to make.
I'm not making any assumptions. Those are facts.
I've never been to the Facebook
I've never
page.
been to a
That's a
Facebook
fact?
page.
Pretty good.
That's an assumption that you have no right to make.
I can't hear you. If you would repeat that, please. Megan?
Go ahead. You're closer.
She said you didn't have the right to assume that she has never visited your Facebook page.
Because I have,
Okay,
I have seen
so I
you all
apologize
sitting
for
in
that
the village
assumption.
park.
But if you
I've
would
seen
have
a
visited
picture,
the Facebook page, it would have
Christine
told you
and Ruth sitting there
who the
together.
board members are, how much money has been donated by Ford Motor, how much money has been donated by the MIT TV, and every other detail that you've asked in these meetings and now have casted doubt with the person and business that is contributing these funds to our village and many of the other parks.
You did not answer the questions. That is why I
What was
reached
your
out
question?
to Ms. Freeze. I don't even know, is it Fries or Freeze?
She wanted to know what your questions were.
My questions were, as I asked, I'll call her Miss Stephanie, so I can pronounce that. Will this money need to be given back if it's not used for the village park? She said no, which you even stated earlier that it would need to be given back. That's not true.
The village park construction is well underway. We have 3 conceptual drawings. We have formulated a nonprofit. We have formulated a board. We have done a lot in those 3 months. If you know anything about forming a nonprofit, you know that it takes time. We have some extraordinary people on this project. We have 3 local businesses on this project, and we also have announced 3 different times and shown those drawings and are in the works of choosing those. And we have also explained to you that we're going to bring the community in so they can choose some of their ideas that they have. But all of that takes a lot of time. And I don't know if maybe you know how much time it's supposed to take, but we have been working diligently through COVID and through the holidays to put this project together. And this project has been put in doubt every single time. When every single element of this project has been done transparently and legally.
Ruth, thank you for coming in on the phone while you're in the hospital. I guess the only question is, this is Justin. I've been asking since we first heard about this for documentation, some of what we're just seeing now. I mean, this has been, 7-8 months. I guess that's my hesitation, and we kind of discussed it already. If this was just provided initially, your nonprofit application, the bank statements, everything, like I just said, and I don't know if you were listening, it would probably have been a lot calmer, a lot smoother right now if this was very transparent from the beginning, like you just said, but it wasn't. I mean, we're talking, this statement is from October, and we're just getting it now, in February.
The notification from the state that we were a corporation, that form that you're looking at right there was posted onto our Facebook page, and then I came to the meeting at the podium and announced the fact that we had the corporation and that we had our EIN number, and that our next step was to spend the $10,000 it takes to be a 501c3, so we could take in more funds than we are able to take in at the MIT TV, and to make sure that there's none of this stuff going on saying, oh, well, it's all in the MIT's bank. Where is it? Is the money even there? In order to not have that happen, we put it into a separate bank. The MIT deals with Chase Bank. The parks and the MIT contribution, which are going to be matched, which are only $10,000 off from being matched at this point, are in a completely separate bank. And there is all of that information on our Facebook page. And I have also given you that information when you've asked.
The other option was you could have passed the money along to the village.
No, you can't.
And that seems to be the problem.
Yes, you can.
So instead of you dealing with your personal problems with the president, you have brought doubt onto the MIT TV. That is what is happening here.
I have
And
not
that
had
should
any
not
personal
happen,
problems.
because what it
You were
does
the one seeming to
is
say that I had
discourages
personal
other
problems.
businesses in getting involved in a village beautification project,
Do we have
because
personal
they
problems,
certainly don't want to go through
That I'm
what I
aware
go
of?
through. And that's what causes people to disparage and to not want to get involved in our village more than they do.
What is the distrust with giving the money to the village?
When people have to deal with politics of this board, anytime they get involved in a project, boy, it should be a wonderful thing. It should be a wonderful thing. The businesses are going to join together in a board, in a nonprofit board, and they're going to contribute out of their pockets to do something good for this village. Not a dime of taxpayers' dollars are being paid. And it's questioned. It's bad. It's not a good thing. It's a doubtful thing. All because you're unhappy with the way the president handled the situation. And the president handled the situation as quickly as she could. And she came to a person that she knew had a 501c3 and that was also generous enough and interested enough to beautify our village park.
That didn't answer the question. What is the distrust in passing the money through to the village?
That's not my business, Megan. That's not my business. Ford Motor Company asked me, because I was a 501c3, and that I was interested in also matching the funds, because I've always wanted to see the village have a nicer park. And we've gone through 2 years of COVID, and I thought it would be a good place to gather. So I have nothing to say about how that particular end was done. I did it accordingly the way Ford asked me to do it. And it was at the last minute of the year. And in order for us to get another allocated sum from them, we had to get it into the system. And that's what your president has been telling you all along. So I'm just here to clarify some of the points that you guys are talking about.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Best wishes for your dad. I hope everything comes out okay.
Yes.
All right, have a good night, Ruth. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion on the table. We have support by Fowler. Can you recap that motion?
I did ask for the
She was in the.
attorney's just insight on this whole letter written up in regards to sending out to Ford, in his opinion.
Well, I mean, that's up to the board. If you want my insight, I can give you my legal opinion, but I don't think you pay me for my insight. I express my insight at the ballot box and keep that to myself. So I'll respond if you want me to.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna just insinuate myself into the situation. That's not my role.
Please respond to this.
Well, I would need a question. It's just, I feel it's not my place to just comment on the letter. That's the politics of it. That's what you hash out. That's not for me. So if there's a specific question about a legality, a legal issue, fine. That's my job. That's my responsibility. But to wax editorial about the letter, I'm disinclined to do that.
Right. What's your question?
My question is, if, with all of this communication that's been going on, is the village in a position to request a copy of the front and the back of the check and the additional information that I had sent in an email originally to Christine back on September 16th, and I can give you this copy of this, and it outlines then the follow-up to the letter or to the email requesting information. If we can still move forward to obtain that information on behalf of the village.
All right. To answer the question, which I will, I have to back up a little bit. First of all, Ford Motor Company or its charitable arm can donate to whomever it wants. They can make donations to the village, to the city of Dearborn, where their headquarters are. They can donate to whomever they want. So you can ask Ford for money, but you can't tell them what they're gonna do. It doesn't work that way. And if Ford decides to make a donation, the threshold question is it public money? Is it public money? Is the donation made to the Village of Romeo? Is it public money? If it is, the treasurer and the clerk are responsible for it, because the clerk's the bookkeeper and the treasurer is responsible for the monies received and deposited. If it's not public money, then you can ask these questions, but neither the clerk or the treasurer are responsible for the money. If it's public money, then the questions are wholly appropriate. If it's not public money, then you also cannot control how it's spent. Because it's either the public's money, in which case it has to be properly accounted for, or it's not. It's one or the other. And if it's the public's money, you have the right to know where it is, how it's held, and what's being done with it. If it's not public money, then you're at the whim and caprice of whoever has the money and what they're going to do with it.
Thank you. And I think Ford felt more comfortable going with a 501(c) so that they know that the money's going to be spent exactly where they were told it's going to be spent. It's just.
No, it's because it had to go to one.
Right.
All right, let's move on because it's 9:15,
Sure, you
and
got it.
I see we have a lot of agenda items. Can you please recap that motion that was on the table?
Okay, the motion was presented by trustee Poznanski to direct the village president to contact the chair of the Friends of the Village Park Incorporated and respectfully request all the board fund monies be passed on to the Village of Romeo post haste.
Okay. Any other discussion, or can we just take a roll call on that?
So, if it's not public money, or is it, what's the clarification on that?
It's not public money.
So it's not?
It's not public money.
It's not public money.
Ford gave it to the Mid-TV for the use of, for the Village Park.
That we have no control over? Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Well, you have control over the village park.
Of the
You don't-
park, but
you don't
not-
have to
not
let
the money.
I mean, I might want to go build a structure at the park because I have the ability to do it, but you.
But that's where the planning commission
Consent
had
decree.
included.
I don't get to do that, so.
Thank you for your clarification.
Thank you.
So, all in favor of Megan's motion? All opposed?
Is it a-
Aye.
Aye.
Can we do a show of hands if you have opposition to?
No. Right, yes, we can. Do a show of hands.
I'm sorry.
No. No's raise their hands, right?
It's not public money.
Yes.
Clear.
You better just do a roll
We
call?
can ask for it.
It's late.
Yeah.
Just do a roll call. It'll be easier.
Okay, ready?
Just looking at the
Yes.
section.
Okay, trustee
That's serious.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
Hart,
No.
Parker,
Yes.
President Malzahn,
No.
Bartholomew,
Absolutely not.
and Everett.
No.
Can I get a motion to approve or authorize me to send this letter on behalf of the Village of Romeo with support from the trustees to Ford Motor Company?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
I
support.
would like to personally be removed from that.
This is on behalf of the Board of Trustees, so we're gonna vote on that right now.
Make it a note.
I can get you Stephanie's number and you can personally call her and let her know.
Thank you.
Because I will be doing likewise.
Do you wanna take a roll, or do you wanna do an all in favor?
That's up to you.
Roll call, just for
Bartholomew?
clarification.
Yes.
Everett,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
President Malzahn,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
Parker,
No.
Poznanski,
No?
Again, it's just very disconcerting that that we cannot find a way. I truly wish we could find a way just to work together collaboratively on something that's good and beneficial to the village residents. I just don't understand the politics behind this, but it's your vote, it's your decision. I just ask that you not jeopardize that $30,000, again, to continue to poke the bear to Ford Motor Company on behalf of the village makes us all look bad. The residents, this board, all the employees, we all look bad when we put that level of distrust out there that we are doing something wrong with the funds that they've entrusted to a 501c3 on our account. It's beyond my comprehension. So
You say it's political. We say, or at least I say, I'm doing my job. And when this was presented, that this money was given to the Village of Romeo, then I wanted the Village of Romeo to have it.
okay. Let's move on to new business. Annual Community Development Block Grant Distributions. Thank you for sitting through this, ladies. I wish the allocation was more. As I indicated in the very beginning, the Village of Romeo will be receiving a $2,500 in Community Development Block Grant funding for fiscal year 2021 from the Macomb Urban County Program. Federal guidelines require that maximum priority be given to activities which primarily benefit low or moderate income families or which aid in the prevention and elimination of slums or blight. A variety of projects are eligible for community funding. So Catherine and I have sat down, we looked at that allocation, which you see on the action item sheet in front of you. CHORE, which is a required mandate, must be awarded $500 out of the $2,500 that we received. McCrest requested $3,780. We are suggesting that they receive $750. Samaritan House requested $1,000. We're suggesting that they get $700. Care House requested $1,800. We're suggesting $250. Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers requesting $148. Suggesting $100. Turning Point requested $1,000. Suggesting $200 is what their award is. So we had $7,728 in requests for our $2,500. We think we've fairly distributed those amongst the requesters, but we're open for suggestions if anybody wants us to move that. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to award the fund allocations as on your sheet.
Are these, was there like a percentage used based on the request to the awarded amount? Or is it just?
We ran in comparison to what they did last year. We looked at last year's allocation.
Second. I'll make a motion to accept the awarded amounts.
Second.
As printed.
Okay, we have a motion by Edwards. We have support by Fowler. I'm going to do a roll call. Any other discussion?
Edwards?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Sosinski?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
President Molzon?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item B, new business, Younger's Tavern Special Event Permit. This is
Make a
it.
motion that we approve it.
Support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Support.
We have a motion by Fowler. We have support by Hart.
Only thing I ask is, last year, I don't know if it was a weather issue or whatnot, but I know the tent, when we were told, would come down before the open of most businesses the following day, and that didn't happen. It created a little bit of a traffic jam for this. I'm fully in favor of the event, just if we could make sure or ask Glenn, I'm sorry, to just make sure that that tent gets taken down in a timely manner so we're not affecting traffic flow the following day.
I'll absolutely pass that request on to him, not a problem. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Moving on to item 10C, Business District Resolution. This is something that we sort of briefly touched on before, and I think Matt might have a little bit of of education for the speed limit that we have currently on St. Clair and Van Dyke. And I know you said at one point, we put up some signs because we wanted to reduce the speed limit, and
Well, St. Clair, before it got repaved, especially on West St. Clair, it was pretty bumpy. And the semi-trucks would come through there, boom, 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 and they would start literally at 5:30 in the morning. So if you lived, right there within one house of West St. Clair, you were going to get an alarm. And so the village went out and changed the speed limits from 35 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. And that seemed to help a lot, but the county said, no. The county went out about a week later, took all the 25 mile an hour speed limit signs down and put up 35 mile an hour speed limits again. So fortunately, about 3 years later, we got the street repaved. But there was a lot of noise up until then.
Especially with the crosswalks coming in and that, I'm
Yes.
fully supporting 25.
So Andrew Hale, resident, you'll probably know him, he ran for a village trustee. Him and his wife occasionally stop into the village hall, and they asked me, what was the status? He's like, I really want the speed limit reduced on St. Clair. They go right past my house, my windows rattle, as you indicated. And I said, look, I've had many discussions with the road commission. I can't get them to really budge on anything. I said, who do you know? You start blowing up their phone, right? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So he said, all right, I'll take this on. So he drafted some emails, sent out some letters. He CC'd John Paul Ray on it, John Abrahams from the road commission. And then we sent an email asking for them to reduce the speed limit, in which they said, thanks, but no thanks. Our data says that it should be 35. And he kept kind of pushing, swatting that hornet's nest, and he found this old codified law from the 1950s. MCL 257.5 and MCL 257.627 that says, in a business district, the speed limit shall not exceed 25 miles an hour. And it is still a law. It is still on the books. And so I took over and I said, Mark, can we name this a business district and then sort of tell the county to go by the law, right? The law says it should be 25. So Mark agreed. He thought that we would be somewhat successful, at least in making that request. They could still insist that their data doesn't support it because it is their maintained road, but they would be going against law. So we met with village planner Steve Casson just to make sure that it wouldn't affect any zoning, but our recommendation is that the boundaries of the DDA, because it's a nice, clear, defined area. You see the map that's in your packet. And that's pretty much the area that we think qualifies to be labeled as a business district. It has to have a certain percentage of commercial businesses over residential in that area. So we feel like the DDA meets that criteria, asking it to be labeled a business district. Mark has ghosted a letter that I can sign and send it off to the road commission, asking them to change the posted signs. What we are hoping is that this business district only would be to Rawls, from Bailey to Rawls, Newberry down to Washington, Church down to Washington, that they will extend the 25 miles per hour speed limit to the Romeo Middle School. Right now we've got a middle school, but we don't even believe it's posted for school zone speed limit control. But we're gonna put that, in the letter and requesting that be posted. We don't want to go from 25 in a school to 35 for 2 blocks back to 25. So we're hoping that they're just going to post that whole St. Clair strip as 25. That should alleviate some of the confusion. So that's in a nutshell. I'm asking for a motion to approve the DDA designation as a business district for the purposes of establishing a speed limit as 25 miles an hour within the area.
I like the speed limit. It's something I've been in support of for a long time. My only question is, by turning this into a quote-unquote business district, besides a speed limit, what else does that do or could potentially do to that area?
Nothing. That's why we met with village planner Steve Casson, who said that the zoning would not be affected by this declaration.
So even if there's residential within a business district, that doesn't affect them?
No, it's still an allowable use, right? The uses don't change by this designation as a business district.
I think making it 25 is great. Sitting in the barber shop for years and watching things rattle, I would agree. I'm just concerned that doing this opens up other.
Right, we met, the three of us didn't anticipate anything, we talked it through,
Yeah.
so we have a motion by Hart, do we have support? By Bartholomew?
In the vehicle code, it mentions a couple years, something, an E 2024, and also 2023. Does that mean it needs to be decided before then? Could you please interpret that, Mark?
I can, maybe. I think the cutoff date, the 2024, is not with respect to the substance. I think it's whether a traffic study is required or who has to weigh in on the decision. I don't believe that those cutoff dates and the mention of those dates are affected by what you're doing or affect what you're doing,
Okay.
whether you vote yes or no.
I wasn't sure in reading it that it made it null and void at that point, and then it was just going to be a few years or something.
I don't believe so. In looking at this and talking to Mr. Hale about it, and looking at some correspondence he had with the Department of Roads, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
I also did inquire with our chief of police if that would be an issue, and he said it gives them more opportunities to write tickets, so they'll have job
So-
security, supposedly.
Is there a traffic study that needs to be done then for this?
No,
Or a speed study, I'm sorry.
No, that's part of the orientation of this, is that the declaration of the business district avoids, in my opinion, avoids the need for the traffic study. The statute says if you're in a designated business district, this is the maximum speed limit. And there was mention made of possibly a school zone. There are statutes that say if you're within so many feet of the school, you can do one thing or another, and they usually implicate some type of a traffic study. And that's been one of the impediments before. The situation that Mr. Edwards mentioned, there was no traffic study. The linchpin was that at the time St. Clair, at least West St. Clair, was within so many feet of what was then the junior high, and then it was the middle school, and now it's a vacant field. And so you were trying to cobble together all these hooks to get where you wanted to be, and that statute which is attached, it's just if it's a business district. And so you declare it a business district, and let's see if good things happen.
Thank you for clarification. Thank you guys for the hard work. And Andrew, we're not here. Thank you for finding this. I think this is great.
Kudos to Andrew, too, for doing a good job.
All right, so we had a motion by Hart, support by Bartholomew. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next up, 10D, Washington Township Water Service Agreement. A little bit of background. As part of the Great Lakes Water Authority's 96-inch main relocation, their repair project, Washington Township and Great Lakes Water Authority are proposing that infrastructure be installed at their expense along 32 Mile Road near the Ford engine plant. The proposed interconnect valve would allow for the supply of uninterrupted water service to the affected areas in the event of a water supply interruption from Great Lakes Water Authority during their relocation project. Currently, Romeo's Industrial Park along 32 Mile Road and Powell Road is supplied water through a tap on Great Lakes Water 96-inch main. This Dorsey Dickinson tap is located at Amanda Moore. As part of the 96-inch main repair, the Dorsey Dickinson valve is being replaced at Great Lakes Water Authority's expense. The valve will not be functional during the repair period. Therefore, the new proposed Romeo Washington interconnect will operate as the water source for the affected areas. This agreement must be executed as part of this project. So just to be clear, this is not our residential water. This is only the industrial park that's serviced by Great Lakes Water Authorities from the Ford engine plant over to Powell along that corridor. So everybody has reviewed this agreement, legal, engineering, Washington Township, their attorney, Great Lakes Water, everybody's had their hand in this. It's been ongoing for quite some time. Pardon me?
Repairing the one on Dickinson, Dorsey.
They're repairing it, but they're going to put a two-way valve, but during the repair, no water will be available.
Correct, the water.
So, yes. So then in the event, after the repairs are completed and the Dorsey Dickinson valve is back on, if either municipality does experience a water interruption, we would be able to get flows from Washington to that area, or vice versa. From if Washington needed water, they could use the Romeo side, so.
I'll make
it's
a
so
motion
smart.
to approve this action item for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Bartholomew, support by Edwards. Any other discussion? All in favor?
My only question is, it says temporary, a temporary water service agreement. So the way you explain it, though, doesn't sound temporary. It sounds like this is going to be something that's sitting there kind of permanently to see just in case, right?
Well, it's labeled temporary because it wouldn't be used permanently at any need.
So it's
it would be-
almost
it would
referring
become-
to the use.
Yes.
Right.
Temporarily would come into service as needed.
Okay, understand.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next up, item 10E, special meeting dates. Just a little bit of background. Annually, the Board of Trustees meets to discuss the upcoming fiscal year goals and objectives in preparation for the draft budget. Also, Romeo Village Council agreed to perform a study providing funding options for a 20-year road management plan that was presented in August of '21. The data is a collaborative project by village consultant James Vitrino, his subcontractor John Kasor of Municipal Analytics, and village engineering firm HRC. Also, Romeo Village issued an RFP for a comprehensive utility rate study. Municipal Analytics was awarded that project at a November 21 meeting and is prepared to present its findings. So, both of the two reports are quite lengthy in their discussion, as well as the goal and objectives, which we typically do not discuss at a village council meeting. So, my suggestion is to have a special meeting to receive both of those reports and do our goals and objectives. I was suggesting Wednesday, March 23rd, or Monday, April 11th, throwing out 6 o'clock, because I don't want to be here till 11, if possible. So,
I would guess March 23rd.
March 23rd.
Should we also get some budget dates on here, too?
That'll be up to Tim. Tim only wants to do one budget. He said he wasn't prepared, going to sit through 2 or 3. He didn't think there was a need.
When is the regular meeting in April scheduled for? Because I know Easter's the 3rd.
It should be
Monday.
the 18th, yes.
That's Easter Monday, correct? So I don't know if that'll be so are we gonna do it on a Tuesday, or are we doing it, I think we used to do
March
it-
23rd is a Wednesday.
April,
Okay, so April 11th is a Monday.
yeah, when is our regular meeting?
Our regular meeting is the 18th, and we are not moving that.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know,
I mean,
because
if
I
you
know,
wanted to move it, we
typically,
can, but-
like, today, we're here on a Tuesday, because yesterday was a recognized holiday, so I just didn't know how you guys had that scheduled for the office, and you guys being off, that's all, I just wanted clarification.
The village, we get Good Friday off, the 15th.
Okay, yeah, I don't have,
So
I
not-
was
not
just
the
wondering if
18th.
we were
Yep.
moving the 18th, or if we're moving the regular meeting to the Monday before.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and going back to my question, I can respect what Tim would like, but again, that is one of those appointed positions that works for us. So if the board would like to have some budget dates, I think we should set some budget dates.
Okay,
Need Tim for
well,
that, though.
right, I don't know what Tim's schedule is, so we can bring back some dates and.
Well, as I would like Tim to be here, of course, but he doesn't have to be here.
Mhm. Okay, so for this special meeting, for the purposes of this agenda item, does Wednesday, March 23rd work better than Monday, April 11th?
For me, it does.
So Wednesday, the 23rd.
Could we push the time back slightly, either the 6:30 even? Give me a half hour.
We can
Yeah, that
offer whatever.
helps me a lot.
Okay. So March 23rd at
I'll be
6:30.
down river.
Does that work
That's
for
good for me.
the majority? Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I will confirm that with both of those vendors, so just to make sure that there isn't another scheduling issue for Wednesday, March 23rd. As a backup, if for some reason something comes up and they can't attend, is the 11th still okay?
I don't know.
Okay,
I may be on vacation.
okay. So Matt would be questionable.
Yeah, Monday,
Anybody
11th
else
would
would
be
be
tough.
questionable?
The 11th, yeah, that would be a hard one.
That Monday, okay, so we have 2 that are questionable. So obviously the 23rd is preferred, okay. So let's just shoot for that, and then I'll report back. As soon as I can get confirmation, I'll send out the meeting notice, and then Catherine will get it posted for the 23rd. Okay. Let's see, we have the Parks and Rec proposal up. We added this to the agenda. Again, I apologize because we had a meeting this afternoon. I'm not sure who was all attending at that last workshop meeting in Washington Township. I know that a few of us were there, but this is the same proposal that was presented on behalf of the Parks and Rec Commission by their attorney, Bob Davis. And this was subsequently sent back and approved by Bruce Township. It was recommended by our legal counsel that Romeo, because we are requesting to be one voting member as a Washington Township resident voting member within this proposal, that if we were in agreement with it, that we also pass a resolution or a motion in support of what the commission is recommending. So that membership would consist of a 7-member commission. 5 members of the commission will be from Washington Township, with one of the 5 members at all times residing in the village of Romeo. 1 member may be an elected official. That underlined sentence is slightly different than what he did present at that workshop meeting, just so that you're aware of that. 2 members will be from Bruce Township, with 1 member may be an elected official. The 7 members of the commission going forward will be selected by the current commission members, the alternates, and the director, 5 persons. The process of selecting the commissioners will be by application and interview. Each selection must be by a unanimous decision of the 5 remaining members. 3 of the 5 selected Washington Township members will serve a 4-year term, 2 will serve a 2-year term. 1 of the 2 selected Bruce Township members will serve a 4-year term, and 1 will serve a 2-year term. Obviously, that creates alternating terms. Going forward, the then sitting commissioners will select new commission members as the initial terms expire. All terms going forward will be 4-year terms. No person may serve more than 3 terms, whether such terms are consecutive or not. All selections for members filling new terms shall be by a unanimous vote of the then 7 sitting commission members. For voting, the proposal was all decisions of the commission shall be made by a majority vote, subject to items B, C, and D, which are below. Item B, any decision on the master plan shall be by a majority vote, but such majority vote must include a positive vote from both a Washington Township member of the commission and a Bruce Township member of the commission. C is any purchase over $20,000 shall be by a majority vote, but such majority vote must include a positive vote from both a Washington Township member of the commission and a Bruce Township member of the commission. The amount can be subject to further discussions. Item D, in order to reject the annual budget presented to the respective boards of Washington Township and Bruce Township by the commission, there must be a supermajority of 6 no votes for Washington Township and 4 no votes for Bruce Township. Otherwise, the annual budget submitted by the commission to the boards of Washington Township and Bruce Township shall be deemed approved by the respective boards. And for the millage rate shall remain at .75 mils for Bruce Township and Washington Township until there is a termination and or dissolution. So that was a response to the commission's, to Washington Township's Parks and Rec bylaws that they were working with their attorney, Greg Mean. So any thoughts on that proposal?
Like, one thing I'm just looking at, the 6 no votes and the 4 no votes, is that 10 members? I'm just trying to here.
What it is, it's so that the board, if there is a dysfunctional board right
Gotcha,
now,
gotcha.
right, yep,
Sorry,
it
what?
can't be by majority of the board, it's a supermajority.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's, they changed all. Are you?
Right, yeah, this was,
comfortable with that?
yeah, this was the proposal that the commission put together as what they thought would be a reasonable olive branch to the Washington Township trustees who are seeking to sort of tear us apart in response to their bylaws, so.
We'd have at least 1 person sitting.
We would have 1 sitting person, right?
We have 0 right now.
Right, we could have 2, should Bruce Township choose to appoint 1 of its members who resides in Bruce Township, but at least 1.
It's a requirement, at least.
Right.
Technically, we could have 5, right? I mean, there's nothing saying that it can't be 5 people from the
Right.
village of Romeo.
Right. But it must
Wasn't
be
it
at least
originally written, and wasn't there a reason that they didn't have people from an elected office? on the board?
Well, the idea was that they wanted to, again, take the politics out of Parks and Rec. But when you reflect on that, the most qualified person to serve on the commission may be an elected official, right? And so therefore, we wanted just to give the option that they could be, but they don't have to be.
And then what, it's not on here, but what are they doing as far as paid? They're not volunteers.
We're not suggesting that anybody gets paid, right? This is
Volunteers? Oh, that's not.
all, right, that's on their end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
So-
I think it looks fair and well thought out.
I would make a motion to pass this on as written with Romeo's support.
Okay, we have a motion by Poznanski,
Support?
support by Edwards. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then we had Megan's discussion for audit reports.
I'm just wondering if someone could speak to what we received. It says that the Village of Romeo, there's a failure to provide annual financial information as required. The Village of Romeo has failed to provide its audited financial statements in a timely manner. I'm just wondering if this will have any impact on us. Does this affect our bond rating? Other than, can anybody speak to that?
Yes, if we do go out to bond within the next 5 years, it could reflect in our interest rate.
So has our bond rating decreased?
No,
It hasn't changed?
just in the future. It could be a reflection. It'll be noted that they were filed, but they were not filed.
What does that mean in a timely manner, exactly?
They have to be filed by the end of December 31st, 2021. And I don't have all the emails back and forth from the representative from Benzinski, Kevin, but he did respond to me when I did pose that question to him, that he would just reflect it in his communication, and I'd have to actually read his verbiage. I don't want to misspeak, but he did indicate that if we were to go out for future bonding for the next 5 years, that it could impact our rate.
I do.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was asking if she had that document from.
Oh.
And that's, I emailed it out to you just so that, and then Justin, I gave you.
Yeah, I asked her if she could print it for me.
Because because it has a lot of detailed
Yeah.
information on there, and I wanted to give that to you ahead of time.
Was that given to all of the trustees?
It was
Yes,
emailed.
and I had CC'd you, Tim, and Catherine upon receipt of it back when I would have received it. I don't have any of the documentation or emails, but Tim had, our accountant had requested that information.
She
once
emailed
I
it.
Received it from Benzinski
Last
and
week?
Company.
Oh,
Last week?
Yeah. You sent that email last week?
Yeah, last Tuesday I sent it
Yeah.
out to you, because I knew I wasn't gonna make the deadline, because I had scheduled,
Yeah.
an appointment.
Because I was requested to send out our audit report to S&P Global Rating, and I did do it on time. So I don't understand the discrepancy.
It would be the actual financial statements, the, auditor, I can't think of the company.
Gaybridge.
Gaybridge, when he came and gave his
Yes,
presentation.
I forwarded that prior to December 31st.
Right,
to
but
S&P
the
Global
actual
Ratings.
financial statements were not filed until January 3rd of 2022. So therefore, when the financial information was sent and forwarded on to Benzinski and Company, it was after the deadline of December 31st, 2021.
And who files that? Was that Gab, or
Was that the firm?
was that the firm's
The county
responsibility?
firm, yes, because I sent my information to the auditors back in October. So all
Yeah.
of my information, and then all of my financial information that I needed to submit to Benzinski and Company, which would have been completed in November, early part of November, and I don't have dates and emails.
Because I also-
Back and forth.
The last
I recall
correspondence.
seeing it in there,
But I
in
do
the
know
financial
that
report,
over
December
the course of
31st.
the holiday, Tim and the accountant, he could probably better explain the process with obtaining the financial records and getting it to the auditor, but there were a couple of departments that needed his review or some change up.
Sounds good. So basically, who dropped the ball? That's, I guess just
And
put
is
it
there
out there. I mean,
anything-
who,
Is there anything we can do about it?
what's that?
And is there anything we can do about it?
Yeah.
I mean, 3 days, is there any grace period? Is there anything we can do? Because we are planning to bond out for our streets in the next 5 years, right? I mean, that's our plan, so.
The last communication that I recall was Tim asking for clarification on the date and inquiring, would it be filed? And I can't remember the representatives from Gaybridge that was on that. What would, would it be filed by the 31st? And they said that it was.
Well, and the third would have been the
So,
first day back
I
after
guess
the
that's
holiday,
why.
or the first working day back after the holiday. Would have been the 3rd, January 3rd. Would have been the first Monday, I believe.
Can you guys get answers and
Yeah.
look at it next meeting?
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing we're gonna do tonight.
Yeah, that's, Sherry, are you able to look in, or do you know what, or can you find out how this could affect us negatively if we're going to go out for bond?
When you go out to bond over the next 5 years, it'll be whatever, what they do.
Is it like a late payment on a credit report, or?
It'll show as a reflection of a late financial statement being filed. But I would, and again, I can't speak on that behalf, but they take a look at your history and see if it's a consistent pattern. But, that,
So we should-
in my
Maybe we
opinion,
can
that
discuss
should
that
have been brought to
the
the
next
attention
meeting
by
too,
the auditor.
Yeah.
what the impact is, because maybe.
We'll find that out from our auditors, and if they did drop the ball and didn't file it on time, I would expect that they would write a letter.
And fix it.
And fix it. So we will, Catherine can inquire about that.
Before, is this closed?
Motion to move into closed session.
Thank you.
Before we go into closed, should we make a motion to extend past 10 if needed?
How much time do we need?
I don't think we're gonna need much more than 15 minutes,
Thank
but
you,
if you
Sherry,
wanna
for bringing
extend
that
it
to our
just out of,
attention.
Yeah.
Right.
Make a motion to extend to 10:15
Yeah.
if needed?
yes.
Support.
Okay, you made a motion to go into closed session?
Wait, we didn't vote on
Yeah.
the extending of 10.
Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Nathan made a motion to go into closed session.
Well, hold on, and truthfully, we did not correct closed session minutes, and we should be correcting something about the closed session minutes, if anybody.
In the closed session agenda, yeah.
It
And I know
was approved
that
in
was-
the,
Minutes we've already been
in the
approved.
I know,
consent agenda.
and there's something that should be.
Can we bring it up as a reconsideration change at next month's meeting? Can we put it on the agenda?
If you want to.
I don't think you can reconsider after the next regular scheduled meeting.
Yes, you can.
At the next regular meeting, you can.
That's today, right?
The
From when
next
the,
meeting,
when the
we go
closed
back.
session happened. This would be the next
The
meeting.
minutes you saw today, though, was
The approval
approved
of the
today.
minutes will be reconsidered.
The minutes were
Okay.
approved today.
Understood.
But
Okay.
can I still get those copies back, we'll bring them back.
Okay, so,
We
we have a motion
no
by,
support.
oh, yeah, let's get into closed session, okay. So, roll call on that.
Okay. Bartholomew?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
President Holmes?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Can I get a unanimous motion to adjourn?
Unanimous vote, second?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, good night. It's 10:05.